Le damos la bienvenida a los asistentes que poco a poco se van sumando a este eh, nuevo encuentro enmarcado en nuestro ciclo de movilización de evidencia sobre uso de evidencia. Agradecemos a todos y todas que van llegando. Le vamos a dar
Thank you,
inicio en
everybody, for
algunos
being
minutos. Vemos
here.
que se están sumando
And
personas
we
de
see
Honduras,
that we've got
Nicaragua,
people from
El
Honduras,
Salvador. También
Nicaragua, El
tenemos personas
Salvador. We also have
de
some people
Haití, tenemos
from
personas
Haiti.
de San Lucia.
We've got people from St. Lucia.
Agradecemos a todos esos que se vienen
I would like to
sumando.
thank
En minutos le
everybody.
vamos a dar inicio a
In a
este
minute,
espacio de
we are going
conversación
to
que hoy
start
tendremos
with this
dos
space
bloques.
for conversation. We will have two blocks.
Tendremos dos bloques de conversación el
We
día
will
de
have
hoy.
two opportunities for conversation today.
Vemos que se siguen sumando.
We
Bienvenidos
will
y
see that more
bienvenidas
people is
nuevamente a este
joining
encuentro de
us.
nuestro ciclo
And
de
thank you very much
movilización de
for being
conocimiento
here
y de la
for a
comunidad de prácticas sobre
mobilization
uso de
of
evidencia
knowledge
en
and the
educación, que
practice
tiene el
of
objetivo de
evidence
abordar
in
pues, desafíos
education,
actuales en
which
la
has the
región. Hoy
purpose
estaremos
of
hablando sobre
covering
los
the
sistemas
current
de
challenges in the
información y
region.
gestión
Today
educativa,
we're
SIGE
going to
o
be
EMIS por sus
talking
siglas en
about
inglés, pero desde un enfoque
the
muy especial, que es precisamente la
EMIS
justicia social.
from a
Yo me
very important
presento,
point
soy
of view,
Mar
which
Botero,
is the
encargada de la
social
estrategia de movilización de
justice. I
conocimiento
am in
y
charge
gestión de
of the
comunidad
strategy
KICS. Estaré
and the
nuevamente
management of the
acompañándolos en
KICS
este
community, and
espacio.
I'm going to be
Muchas
in this
gracias a todos
opportunity
los que
with
aceptaron esta
you. Thank you very
invitación, que
much,
se vienen
everybody
sumando.
who accepted this
Vemos
invitation.
por ahí más personas del
We
Caribe
will
Oriental que
see
se
more
vienen
people from
sumando,
the
de Dominica,
Caribbean,
de
from
Granada,
Dominica,
personas del
from Grenada,
ministerio, de
people from the
organizaciones de la sociedad
ministry,
civil que
from
trabajan
organization of
en
the civil
educación.
society,
Muchísimas gracias.
people
En la
working
lógica
in
de fortalecer el
education, in the
multiculturalismo,
logic of
hemos pedido a los
having this
expositores el día de hoy
multiculturalism.
que hablen
We
en su lengua
have a
materna, tomando en
request
cuenta la diversidad de los
speakers
públicos
to
que hoy nos
speak in
acompañan
their
de toda
mother
América
tongue.
Latina.
So,
De
taking
esta
into
manera, para
account
las
that we've got
personas que
people
nos
from
acompañan
all
por su
over Latin
compañía en Zoom,
America, and
les
for the
recordamos que
people
este evento
who are
contará
in
con
Zoom
traducción
with us,
simultánea en
we are
español,
going to have
inglés y
simultaneous
francés, por lo que les pedimos
interpretation,
seleccionar
English,
en el
Spanish, and
botón de
French.
interpretación en la
So
parte
please
inferior
select
de su
the
pantalla
bottom
el idioma
in
en el
the
que
lower
desean
part
escuchar el
of your
video.
screen in the
For those
language in
who
which you
join
would
us
like
at
to
Zoom, we
listen
remind you
this in your own
that
language.
this event will have simultaneous translation in Spanish, English, and French, so please select the language in which you wish to listen this event. Click on the interpretation option at the bottom of your screen. Vamos sumando. En un minuto exactamente vamos a
So in
empezar
1 minute, we are
espacio.
going to start.
Tenemos una representación
We've got
bastante nutrida de
a
diferentes
representation that is very important
iniciativas de
from the different
Centroamérica, del Caribe
initiatives from
Oriental. Hoy nos
Central America,
acompañan
from the Orient, the
diferentes
Caribbean.
ministerios
We've
también.
got different ministries.
Así que agradecemos que poco a
So
poco
I
se
really
vayan sumando a
appreciate
este espacio.
that you're joining us
Bueno,
today.
no siendo más,
Well,
siendo las 11:05, ahora sí
being
les damos la bienvenida
11:05,
nuevamente a
we
este
would like to
espacio.
welcome you
Como
all
les
to this
comentábamos,
opportunity.
este espacio
And as I
tendrá dos
said,
bloques de
we will
conversación donde
have
estaremos
two blocks
debatiendo
of
de la mano de
conversation
expertos y
when we're
expertas
going
de
to
la
be
región
talking from
sobre los
the
desafíos
hand
que
of some
hoy nuestros
experts of the
sistemas
region about
de
the
información para
challenges
la gestión
of our
educativa están
systems of
enfrentando. Para
information
nosotros
are
será
facing.
siempre
For
un honor
us,
tener a
it
tantas
was
personas del
always
ámbito
an honor
educativo, por lo que
to
veo
have so
más
many
de
people from the
13 países
educational area. See
representados y un
more than
número igual de
13
instituciones
countries
reunidas en esta
represented and also
conversación. Tenemos el
different
agrado de contar
institutions
con
who
la
have got the
representación del
pleasure
Banco
of having
Interamericano de
the
Desarrollo, de la
representation
Organización de
of
Estados del
the
Caribe Oriental, Ministerio de
organization
Educación de
of
Santa
the
Lucía,
Oriental
Granada,
areas
Honduras,
and Santa Lucia, Granada,
representantes de la Universidad de
Honduras,
Oslo
from the
y
Inter-American
y
Development
obviamente
Bank,
del Centro
from
Internacional de
the
Investigación para
University
el
of
Desarrollo,
Oslo,
IDRC, y la
and
Alianza Mundial
also
para
the
la Educación.
RDIC, and
Agradecemos también
also
nuevamente a nuestros
the
ponentes del día de hoy que muy
organization of
amablemente han
this.
aceptado esta
And
invitación,
also,
que
thank you very
tuvieron
much,
la
everybody, for
flexibilidad
accepting
para
this
cambiar la fecha, porque
opportunity.
ustedes
And you
saben,
have the
este
flexibility
webinar
to
estuvo
change the date
programado para
because
una fecha
this
anterior,
webinar
pero debido
was in a
a la
previous date but
que
because
nuestros
of
hermanos
the
del Caribe Oriental
catastrophe that
tuvieron que
our
enfrentar en
friends
las
from the
pasadas
Eastern
semanas,
Caribbean
siendo
had to
empáticos con
face
ustedes,
in the
decidimos
last weeks, we
reagendarlo.
decided
Nuevamente,
that
yo
we
soy
need to
Mar Botero,
reschedule. Once
encargada de la
again, my
estrategia de
name is
movilización de
Marvotero. I
conocimiento,
am
y les
in
agradezco
charge of
nuevamente por estar
mobilization
acá.
of knowledge, and
Sin
thank you
más
very much once
preámbulos,
again for being
Raúl, te
here.
doy la
Without
palabra.
further
Raúl es
ado,
el
Raul, I would
director
like to give you
nuestro
the floor.
del
He
Centro
is the
Regional
director
para el
of
Intercambio de
our
Conocimiento e Innovación
regional
TICSLAC. Cuenta
center
con más
for
de 20
the
años de
Kixlab. He
experiencia
has
en el
with
campo
more than
educativo.
20
Es
years of
sociólogo de la
experience in the
Universidad
education.
Católica
He is
de
a
Chile y tiene una
sociologist from the
maestría en
Catholic
estudios
University and
educativos
has
de
a
la
master's
Universidad
in
Concordia de Montreal, Canadá.
education
Así que
from
Raúl, por
Montreal,
favor.
Canada. So, Raul, please, the floor is all yours.
Muchas gracias, Mar, por la introducción.
Mari, thank you very much for the
Muy
presentation.
contentos de concretar
I'm
este
so
encuentro, este nuevo
happy that
encuentro.
we are
Agradecer,
able
por
to have
supuesto,
this new meeting.
al
And
GTD,
of
a la
course,
Alianza
thank you
Mundial
very
por la
much
Educación,
TPA
a la IDRC de
to
Canadá, que
the
hacen posible
RDAC
que esta
from Canada
iniciativa
that makes this
KICS
possible.
sea
For
posible.
this kicks
Desde
is
SUMMA estamos muy
possible.
contentos de
From
seguir
SUMMA, we're very happy
potenciando
to
estas discusiones
continue
en conjunto con nuestros colegas
reinforcing this
de la
with our
Organización de
colleagues
Estados del
from
Caribe
the
Oriental,
organization
OICS,
of
por sus
the
siglas
Eastern,
en
the
inglés.
OECS.
Y por supuesto agradecer
And
a todos
of
los países
course, I would like to
que
thank
hacen
all the
posible,
countries that
que
make
demuestran
this
el interés
possible, that
por
demonstrate
este
the
tipo de
interest
diálogo productivo que
because of
hacemos.
these kind of
Un
dialogues that
especial
are quite
agradecimiento a nuestros
productive.
expositores del
Thank you
día
very
de
much
hoy.
to the
Ya van a ser
presenters
presentados
that will
cada
be
uno y cada una
today. You're
con
going to be
propiedad. Representación
introduced, each one
del
of you,
Banco
and
Interamericano de
also the
Desarrollo, el mismo
representation
SUMA,
of
nuestra
the
colega María José
IDB or a
Barcal
colleague
de
from Maria Jose
OICS,
from
la
SUMA
Secretaría de Educación de
OECS,
Honduras,
from
el
the
Ministerio de
Secretary
Educación de
of
Santa
the
Lucía y
Ministry
Granada y de
of
la
Santa
Universidad de
Lucia
Oslo,
and
también nuestro
Granada, and from the
acompañante. Soy
University of
miembro del
Oslo,
RDAC
as
de
well
Canadá, del
from
Centro de Investigaciones
RDAC from
para el
Canada,
Desarrollo de Canadá.
for the
Algunas
development
ideas
of Canada.
para
Some
contextualizar la
ideas,
jornada de hoy.
just to give you a
eh,
context.
y quisiera partir
I
señalando que
would like to
estamos nosotros
start saying
en un tercer momento de lo que
that we
llamamos
are
un
in a
ciclo de
third moment
movilización
of
de
what we call
conocimientos
a
que
cycle
partió
of mobilization of
por allá
knowledge
por
that
fines de
started
septiembre
back
del
in
año pasado,
September
donde
of
dijimos
last year
vamos
when we
a retomar
said
la temática, vamos a
we
darle
are
fuerza a
going
una
to
temática
take this
que tiene
topic,
relevancia mundial y
and this is
regional, por
something
supuesto,
that
tiene que
has a
ver
great
con el uso
importance
de la
at a
evidencia
regional and a world
y
level that
cómo
has
se
to do
toman
with the
decisiones
use of
en
evidence for
política y
the
programas educativos.
decision making
Por supuesto, en el mejoramiento
making
continuo de nuestro sistema y
progress
los
for the
aprendizajes
continuous
de
improvement
nuestros
and
estudiantes.
also for the learning
Para
experience
esto
of our
hemos
students.
iniciado
So for
una
that,
serie, entonces, como digo, de ciclos
we started with
de
a series of
diálogo, de
cycles, of
intercambio,
dialogues,
de
of
aprendizaje,
interchange,
entre los
of
cuales
learning
también destacamos
experiences,
algunas
and
experiencias concretas que hemos tenido
we
con los
exchanged
países
some
socios de la Alianza
experiences
Mundial.
with
En
some
particular, hemos
countries that
estado
are part
trabajando
of
con
this
países del
World
Caribe
Alliance. We have been working with
todo lo que
some
tiene que ver
countries
con
of
el
the Caribbean,
fortalecimiento de los sistemas.
everything that has to do with the
Ya lo decíamos,
reinforcement
sistemas
of
de
the
información
system.
para la
We
gestión
call it
educativa,
for
SIGED o
the
EMIS en
SIGER
inglés.
or EMIS in
Hemos venido
English
trabajando
and
intensamente no
EMIS
solo
in
en
English.
discusiones
And
y
we have been
diálogo,
working not
sino
only
también
in
en intercambios
discussion and
presenciales
dialogues, but
entre países
also
para
in
aprender unos de otros,
exchanges
así
among
como las
countries to learn
delegaciones del
from each other's
Caribe
and delegation of the
Oriental
Caribbean. From
visitaron
the Eastern
Guyana,
Caribbean,
desde
they
Guyana
visited
se nos citó
Guyana.
la
From
experiencia de
Guyana,
Bahamas y
they
esperamos que
visit
siga
the
siendo
experience of Bahamas. So we
una
really
manera
expect
interesante de seguir
this to be an
intercambiando, aprendiendo
important
y
way
desarrollando
of
agendas de
exchanging
colaboración hacia
and
adelante. Ya
developing
vienen, por cierto,
cooperation from now
recetas también
on.
dadas en ese
So
sentido.
also
Se
they
trata
have
de un
existed.
esfuerzo
So
global, por
this is a
supuesto, un
global
esfuerzo
effort, of
que
course.
está siendo también
This is an
empujado
effort
desde
that is being
UNESCO y del
launched
Instituto
from
de
UNESCO
Estadística.
and from
Ya
the
vamos a
Institute
tener
of Statistics.
prontamente
And soon
alguna
we are
participación con
going to
ellos
have a
también.
participation with them
Y no
as well.
va
It,
por el lado de
and
los esfuerzos
it
globales
has nothing to
también de
do
lo que
with the
significa
area
el
of the
desarrollo
global
de una
aspect, with the
literacidad
development
digital, lo que
of
significa cómo los sistemas
digital
SIGED o EMIS
interaction,
se
how
relacionan con
the
todo lo que es
EMIS
plataformas digitales.
system are
Al mismo
related
tiempo se
to the
requiere
digital platforms.
una
At the same
literacidad
time, we
en el
also
análisis de los
need
datos que
to
estamos
have a data analysis
recolectando y por lo
for
tanto
whatever we are
sobre los cuales
recollecting
queremos
and
tomar
on which
decisiones
we
y tomar
want
acciones. Eso es
to
lo central
trigger some action.
que
That is
vemos hoy día
key.
en la discusión de EMIS. En
And
particular,
that is
queremos
what we
poner el foco
see
en la
in
justicia
this.
educativa
So
y
we
por
need
eso
to have a focus
el
in the
énfasis lo hemos
educational
dado
justice. So that's why we call it the EMIS for the educational and social justice. Each person counts, and we really want them to go beyond the averages. And as an educational system, we want to have it for each one of our students. So when we take a look at the CIGES or EMIS from the classroom, and wherever is happening in the educational institution and everything that has to do with the access and also the retention of the students, that is still very, very important. Even though when we're talking about a focus in quality, that is very important, the access, retention, and the assistance are key to make sure that we will have a good experience for each boy and girl. And also we need to monitor the learning experiences of each one of the students beyond the grades. So that's why we start looking into the territorial levels. We take a look at not only what's happening in the schools or also in the classroom, but how the systems of information will tell what's happening in the intermediate level when we've got all the necessary support for the educational aspect and the students that will need it the most, where we've got certain automatic reports or some others that can be established for the follow-up and monitoring of what's happening with each one of the students. The alert system that are very important at the territorial level. Just to give you an example, we say that when we need it, that a child will not go to classes in the morning, when they do not get to school, the idea is to know what sort of action are we going to use, the EMIS, are we going to use, are we going to call, to know what's happening with that child that is not going to school. At that level is what we want to do, and we want to insist on the importance of the system. And also at a national level, this sort of systems are being reported by the investment that the system needs, whether it is the sort of infrastructure, connectivity that is so important to work online, offline, everything that has to do with the training, the continuous training, starting with the teacher support system towards the different players that are users of our system. And also, this is an intersectorial effort. We know that there are some good experiences that show that the follow-up of that student by means of their unique ID would allow us to be connected to the social services, the health system, to see what is the educational trajectory of that student. And that is something that we have been working at SUMMA in order to push a journey for the academic part aspect and each children that go through the educational system. So without any further ado, I just want to reinforce that our discussion, we always promote the local view represented by countries and also the regional one given by the different organizations that are here, and a global point of view that is very well represented by the Oslo University that has been working in different areas, and they will also tell us about this intersectorial efforts, and of course with the RDIC of Canada that has been globally working on this topic. So without any further ado, Amar, I would like to give you the floor.
Sí, Raúl,
Back to you.
muchísimas gracias. Bueno, a continuación,
Thank
precisamente
you,
para empezar con
Raul.
este ciclo de
And now, just to
movilización,
start with this
contaremos
cycle of
con la primera
conversation,
presentación a
we're
cargo de
going to
Marcelo,
have the first
Pérez
presentation
Alfaro,
that is
especialista
in charge
principal
of
en educación
Marcelo Pérez
comunitaria
Alfaro,
para el
and
Cono
he
Sur
is the focal point
del
for
Banco
the South Cone
Interamericano.
from
Marcelo
the
cuenta con amplia
Inter-American
experiencia
Bank
en
of
liderazgo
Development. He has a
institucional,
broad experience
de la
in
planificación
leadership
estratégica
and the
presupuestaria
management
de las
of
organizaciones
strategic
sociales como la
areas in
Administración
different
Nacional
social
de Seguridad
organizations,
Social y el
such as
Instituto
the
Nacional de
Social
Servicios Sociales
Security
para
and the
Jubilados y
National
Pensionados en
Institute
Argentina. Marcelo
for
tiene
Argentina
un
for
máster
the
en
retired.
administración
He has a
pública en la Kennedy
master
School of
in public
Government en la
administration in
Universidad
the
de
Kennedy
Harvard,
School
y
of
también tiene
Government from
posgrado en
Harvard
economía por la
University and a
Pontificia
postgraduate
Dictella,
in economy
licenciado en
from
economía por la
Dictela,
Universidad
and he
Católica de
has a
Argentina.
diploma from
Marcelo
the
nos estará
Catholic
dando un
University of
recorrido por los
Argentina.
diferentes
Marcelo is
desafíos de
going to
los
be
ciclos
talking
de
about the
máster en
different
Latinoamérica. Muchas gracias,
challenges
Marcelo, por
of
aceptar esa invitación.
EMIS.
Adelante.
And thank you very much,
Gracias a
Marcelo,
ti,
for
Mar.
accepting this
Bueno,
invitation. Thank you, Mar.
agradecer a
I just
SUMMA,
want to
a la,
thank
a la
SUMMA,
RDIC,
the
GP y a
RDIC,
la, y a
GP,
la, y a la Organización de los
and
Estados
the
del Caribe
organization of
Oriental.
the state of
Para mí
the
es
Eastern
un gusto
Caribbean
grande estar aquí
countries. So
y bueno,
it is a pleasure for me to be
ciertamente
here
compartir
and to
proyectos,
share
ideas,
a project,
es lo que
ideas.
nos, es lo que nos, es lo que nos
That's
enriquece.
what really
Em,
makes us
Tengo
richer.
que confesar que me llamó la,
I need to confess
la atención el nombre
that
que
really
lee
called my
a esta
attention the
sesión,
name of this
Oficial para
session,
la, digamos, para
which
la
is
justicia social.
the
Creo que tiene
EMIS for
mucho que ver
social
con
justice.
eso.
I think it has a
Tiene
lot
que
to
ver
do
con
with
que
this
tenemos que
because
saber quién
we
es
need to
quién,
know
en dónde
who
está
is who, where
y quién
they
lo
are,
puede ayudar
who can help them
para realmente
in order
acompañar a todos
to be part of
nuestros
it
estudiantes
and to be
en esa
part of the process of our
trayectoria
students
educativa que
in
enfrenta
this
tantas
educational
dificultades.
journey that they have
Algunas
to
son
face so many
como lo que es
difficulties, and
el
some of
entorno,
them has to
otras
do with
tienen
the
que ver con
environment, some others
circunstancias,
they have to do with different
digamos, de las
circumstances
familias y
of their own
ciertamente
families,
para cumplir esa
and
propuesta que nos
certainly
hizo
to
Raúl
fulfill with the proposal that
a lo último,
Raul asked at
sentido que
in the last
sepamos qué
part, in the
pasa en
sense
las
that we need
salas
to
de aula
know
y que podamos
how are
reaccionar
we going to know what's happening
positivamente frente a
in
esos
the classroom, and to have a
necesitamos de
reaction.
buenos sistemas
We need to
de
have a
formación.
very good system
Perdón,
for
en un segundo
training.
vamos un poquito para atrás. Ok, entonces yo les voy a
So
presentar un poco
I'm going to
esta
present
cuestión de los sistemas de
this that has
información
to do with the system of information.
y básicamente gestión
And
educativa
basically, this is an educational
desde dos ángulos,
management from
dos o
2
tres ángulos.
points of view, two
Un
or three
ángulo
points of view.
sería cómo
One
esto
of
entra
them will
dentro de
be
una
how this is
transformación
going to be
educativa que es
within an educational
que
transformation,
comprende el tema de, digámoslo
which
así,
understand
gestión que tiene que ver con lo que es
the
la transformación
management
como
that
digital.
has to
Vamos a hablar de
do
cuáles
with
son
the
los
digital one.
pilares que tiene
We will see which are
y
the
vamos
pillars that it
también
has,
y les voy a compartir dos
and
herramientas que son muy útiles para pensar
I'm going to share
el
with you
punto
two
de partida
tools that
de
are very
cada
important
país, de
so
cada
that we can
provincia,
see what is the starting
de
point for
cada
each
estado, que
country,
son dos
each
herramientas
province,
que
and
tratan
those are tools
de informarnos
that
cuál
are
es la
trying to report
madurez y
and
cuál
to
es el
tell us
punto
what is
de
the
partida
maturity
como que cada
and what is the
sistema
starting
tiene. Y
point
luego
for
vamos a
each system.
entrar
And
de
then
lleno
we
en
will
la
go
cuestión de los modelos
straight
exigentes. Entonces,
into the
ciertamente hoy
EMIS.
en lo que es Latinoamérica
For
y el
Latin
hecho, digamos,
America
Caribe,
and the
estamos
Caribbean,
enfrentando
we are
una, una
facing
transformación en educación, que
some
es
sort of a transformation
básicamente
in
la
education, which is
educación que
basically
tenemos
the
hoy hacia
education
una
that we've got
educación
today towards
4.0. Estamos
4.0
llamando a una
education.
transformación
And then
digital,
this
como digital, pero que
is
no
a
significa
digital
para nada
transformation, but it doesn't
educación
mean
remota, a distancia,
that this is
sino,
a
sino
remote
que significa
education, but
una
it
educación que está
means that
centrada
this is an education that is centered
en el estudiante, que
in the
tenemos
student,
nuevas,
and we've
nuevas
got
pedagogías y nuevas formas
new
como de
pedagogies and
enseñanza.
new ways
Tenemos
of
el uso
education.
de la
We've got
tecnología
the
no como
use of
fin,
the
sino como
technology
un
not as
medio para estas nuevas
the final
prácticas
purpose, but as a mean
colocadas
for
al
these
servicio
new
de
practices
como
that are
nuestros
available
docentes.
for the service of
Y
our
tenemos una
teachers.
ampliación
And
del
we also
tiempo
have
y
a
el espacio
time increase of for time and
educativo
space
que
for
ciertamente tiene que ver
education that
con
certainly
la
has to do
con la tecnología
with the
complementando a la
technology
escuela presencial, que es la que
that
todos
is
sabemos.
the one that is going to support
La
with the
pandemia yo creo que
education.
sirvió como para darnos cuenta que es posible tener una continuidad educativa aún con el espacio, digamos,
can have continuity. The
natural en
pandemic
el
has
que
shown that
ocurre el
there's
proceso
a
de
natural process and that we
enseñanza-aprendizaje,
can see in
pero que esto
learning,
no
and
puede sustituir
this cannot
plenamente a
substitute
la, bueno,
the
como la escuela que,
the school itself,
que entrega
which
este,
delivers
contenidos, sentido, como
different
decís,
contents and
comunidad,
sense and community
socialización, que las otras
socialization that
variantes
other
no lo
variables
permiten.
cannot cover,
Bien,
cannot allow.
este proceso como
This
de
process
transformación se
of
da a
transformation
través de
is
dos
given through
pilares. Un pilar
two
que tiene que ver
pillars.
con
One
el
that has to
pedagógico,
do
que es el
with the
uso
pedagogical
de
side,
la
which is the
tecnología
use of
en la
technology
sala de aula. Y
within
otro
the
que
classroom.
tiene que
And the
ver
other
con
one has to
la
do
gestión,
with
que tiene que ver con los
management.
procesos
In other
que se
words, having
pueden
to do with the
eficientizar más
processes
y
that
con
can
una
become more efficient
información
and
digital
with digital
integrada
information that is
y
integrated and
actualizada. Y estas dos palabras
updated. And these
son
two
bien
words are
importantes
important.
y se refiere
And it
a un
refers
criterio de
to
una visión
a
global y de
vision,
una
a global vision,
actualización
and also an update
como, como permanente.
that
Pasamos
is
de la
permanent.
lógica de la carga de información, que es una lógica más
And
como
this
la del
having to do with the
census,
load of
a una
information is more the
lógica de
logic of a census
explotar
than that of
la
exploiting
información que los sistemas
information
administrativos
that administrative
generan. Y eso es un
systems
cambio
generate.
de
And this
cabeza,
is a
es
change
un cambio de lógica total.
of
Y
a
ahí,
complete change of
como
logic. And there,
basamento de
as a
estas
base
dos cosas, tenemos la
of these two
cuestión
things,
de
we
bueno,
have
de la interoperabilidad que no
interoperability
solo es importante,
that is
como nos
not only
comentó Raúl,
important,
para
as
trabajar
Raul
con otras
mentioned, to be able to
políticas
work with other
sociales, sino
policies
también
and other
para
social policies, but also
integrar y para
to
interoperar
integrate and
información
be able to interoperate
dentro
with
del
the
campo
information
como educativo. Entonces,
within the educational
muy
field.
rápidamente,
So quickly,
respecto del pilar
regarding this
como pedagógico, desde el banco,
pedagogical,
estamos
from the bank point of view, from the
utilizando
bank,
una
we are
herramienta
using
que es la guía
a tool
EduTech, que
that is the
básicamente
EduTech guide,
es una guía
which is a guide
que fue elaborada
that was elaborated
en Brasil y que desde el banco
in Brazil,
la
and
adaptamos
from the
para
bank we
los
adapt
países
it
como de habla
for
hispana, y
Spanish
que
speakers
permite
that allows
evaluar
us to assess
tres, tres aspectos importantes.
three important
Docentes en el
aspects:
sentido de una
the teachers
autoevaluación
in the sense
formativa
of
de cuáles son las competencias que
self-evaluation
los
of
docentes
the
tienen como para
competencies that they
enseñar
have
con
to
tecnología,
be able to
a
teach with
nivel de
technology,
las escuelas, que
as
tiene que
well
ver
as the
con un
schools, and it has
diagnóstico
to
sobre el
do
nivel
with a
de
diagnosis
adopción
of the
de
level of
las tecnologías
adoption
y de
of
la
technology
de
and
la infraestructura. Esta
infrastructure.
plataforma
And
no
this
solo
platform not
evalúa cuál
only
es el nivel de madurez
evaluates
en el que
the
docentes
maturity
y
level of the
escuelas están,
teachers
sino que
and the
permite dar
schools,
una
but it allows us to also give
retroalimentación
feedback
personalizada y
that is
también
more
a nivel de
personalized
como de las escuelas.
and
Y
also at school
básicamente
level.
la
And
agregación
basically,
de la
the
información sobre los
aggregation of
docentes
information of
y
the
sobre las
teachers
escuelas
and also the
permite tener un
schools allows us to
tablero
have
estratégico para
a
para las,
strategic
como para las autoridades
table
de los sistemas
for the
educativos.
authorities of the
Esta es una
educational
herramienta
systems. And this is a
ciertamente
tool
importante, tanto para
that is very important
planificar
to
una
be able to
transformación de
plan
este tipo, como para
transformation of
tener
this
luego
kind, as
una
well as being
herramienta
able
como para
to have a
acompañar
tool to be able to
cómo,
accompany how
cómo los sistemas
the
educativos
systems
están
are
avanzando en esta
going forward
transformación.
in this transformation.
Y aquí, básicamente, tenemos una plata como
And here, as you can see, we basically have a platform
plataforma que permite ver
that
los
allows us to
los tres
see
ámbitos, docente,
the three different
escuela
teaching
y
areas. The
la
three different areas. You have the
secretaría
teachers,
como en este caso.
the
Lo hemos ya
education, and
aplicado
then
en
the
Colombia,
secretariat. We have applied this in Colombia,
en Honduras,
in
en
Honduras,
Nicaragua, y
Nicaragua,
próximamente va a ser
and soon
aplicado
it will be
en Argentina.
applied in Argentina.
Además,
And also
obviamente en Brasil,
in
eso
Brazil,
está siendo
this
aplicado
is
ya desde el
being
año
applied
2019
since
y existen casi
2019, and
unas 25.000
there are
escuelas
around
en las que se
25,000
aplicó esto.
schools where this
Vamos
has been
entonces a un
applied.
pilar que tiene que
So
ver
let's
con
go to the
la
pillar that has
gestión,
to
que es lo que
do
nos
with
ocupa,
management, which
lo
is
que nos
what
ocupa
we
más
are
hoy.
more interested
Todos
in
somos
today.
conscientes de las
We are all
deficiencias
aware of the
de las
deficiencies
deficiencias que como que la gestión educativa tiene. Basta
that this educational
revisar
management has. We just have to review
algunos
a
artículos en
few
cuanto a lo que es
articles
el
regarding
diario,
the,
digamos,
in the different
noticias.
newspapers or in
Ahí tenemos
news.
noticias de
And we can
Chile,
see that there's
Uruguay,
news from Chile, from
Argentina,
Uruguay, from
y ahí va
Argentina,
desde alumnos y
and there it
profesores,
goes from students and
digamos,
teachers
fantasmas, trámites
that are,
que duran demasiado tiempo,
you have
largas filas
timelines that are too
por
long, that takes too much
procesos
time to do the
como de
processes. You have long
matriculación,
lines. It's
no
very difficult
saber
to be able to sign up
quiénes
into
son
the schools and to not
los
know
y las jóvenes que están fuera
who
de
the young
como de
people
las
are who are not in the
escuelas.
system.
Eso ciertamente nos hablan de
That shows us
desafíos importantes
challenges,
como para la
important
gestión
challenges
educativa y
for
que
school
afectan
management, which
a
affect
los estudiantes, a las
the
familias,
students, family,
profesores y a la
teachers,
comunidad toda.
and the community.
Si cruzamos
If
la
we
inversión
cross
acumulada
investment that is accumulated
por estudiante con los
by
puntajes
students
promedios
with the average
de matemática
scores
en las
of
pruebas
math
PISA, vemos
in the
que todos nuestros
PISAT
sistemas
test,
están
we can
por
see that all of
debajo
our
de esta
systems are
curva
under
roja que
this red curve
como que vemos ahí.
that we can see here.
El Salvador casi con el mismo
El
gasto
Salvador almost with the same
por estudiante que tiene
due to with the
Vietnam,
students it has as Vietnam, it contains results that are
bastante inferiores a lo que
pretty
alcanza
inferior
Vietnam. Y
to the
también
ones Vietnam
vemos que
has.
todos
And we can
nuestros países
also see that all
están
of our
por debajo
countries
de la
are
curva
under the
roja
curve,
que
under the
marca
red curve, which marks
que los sistemas alcanzan
that the systems
puntaje
are reaching a score
adecuado para el
that is
gasto
adequate
por alumno
for the
que tienen.
expense
Por tanto,
for
el
per
campo
student that they have.
aquí
Therefore,
como
the
para
field here
mejorar
to be able to improve
la eficiencia del
efficiency of the expense and to be able to obtain better results is pretty broad.
Viene un punto
There's a
importante.
point here that is very important. What is the main key of this EMIS? And this is for having unique identifiers, and these identifiers that have to be, which is a necessary condition to be able to have a maturity head and high impact, is first to be able to know, to have a specific registry for each student or indicator, a unique indicator for each position that exists in the schools, each and also for human resources, which are the ones who are going to take those, be in those posts, not only to know who they are, but also where they are teaching, where they are supporting, supervising, etc. We have to have a unique indicator for each building of the educational systems, and we also have to have an indicator that is unique for each school that sometimes does not correspond with the buildings. And this is also very important to have
a lo largo de todo el ciclo de la vida estudiantil,
along
porque es lo
the
que nos
school
va a
life cycle,
permitir hacer
which is what will allow us
un
to
seguimiento y una protección
have a follow-up and a
de
protection
las trayectorias ante la
of the different trajectories.
movilidad que los estudiantes tienen. Es
And
importante
regarding
tenerlo
the
a lo
mobility
largo
these
de la
students
carrera
have, so we need to see it
profesional
throughout the professional
de
career of
nuestros docentes,
our
porque
teachers,
precisamos
because
conocer por
we need to
dónde han ido,
know
cuáles son
where they have
cuáles son
been,
las formaciones que tienen, cuáles son
what
las
teaching
capacidades,
training they
cuáles son
have, what
las
capabilities they
potencialidades que
have, what
ellos
potential they
tienen.
have,
Y eso
and
ciertamente
that
permite una mejora,
allows an improvement,
una mejor asignación
a
en lo que
better
es recursos,
assignment of
mejorando
reallocation of
equidad y
resources and making sure we
mejorando
have equity
como eficiencia, y nos permite hacer un
and
seguimiento y
efficiency, and
una
it allows us to have a
personalización de los
follow-up and
aprendizajes
personalization
usando
um,
nuevas
using new
tecnologías. Pero para tener todas esas
technology.
cosas avanzadas,
But to have all of
precisamos
those
esto que suena
things,
muy simple, pero que nos hemos
this may sound
encontrado
simple,
que muchos sistemas
but we have
tienen
found that many
enormes desafíos como
systems
para
have high,
conseguir
great
esto.
challenges to be able to accomplish this.
Lo que básicamente hicimos fue
Basically, what
pensar
we
cuáles
did
son los
was
5
to
procesos
think,
de
what are
gestión
the 5
centrales que tiene
management
cualquier
processes
entidad, puede
that
ser un
any
ministerio, puede
entity
ser una
has? It can be a
secretaría,
ministry, it can be a
que,
secretariat
que tiene a su cargo la
that
responsabilidad de un
has the
servicio educativo.
responsibility of some
Y
kind of educational
básicamente tiene
service.
que
And basically,
gestionar la infraestructura
it has to
física,
manage
el
the physical
equipamiento,
infrastructure,
tiene que
all the
gestionar
equipment. It
las
has to
instituciones
manage
educativas, las
educational
escuelas,
institutions, the
tiene que
schools.
gestionar
It has to
recursos
manage
humanos, que son los
human
recursos
resources,
humanos
the human
docentes
resources that are
que
the
van a ser
teachers who
los
are going to be
responsables por,
responsible
por estar en las escuelas,
to be
estar
in the
en las aulas.
schools
Tiene que
and in the
gestionar
classrooms.
a
They
los
have to
estudiantes,
manage
a
the
los aprendizajes
students'
y a sus
learning
trayectorias, tiene que
and
poderse
their
comunicar con las
journeys, and they have to be able to
familias.
communicate with
Y
the
cruzando a
families.
estos
And
4 puntos
crossing
tenemos
these
herramientas para la
points, we
gestión
have tools
estratégica,
for
que no
this
son más que
strategic
dashboards, no son más
management.
que
It's not much more than
tableros
dashboards, it's
tableros
dashboards
de gestión que tienen que ser pensados no
that
solo para las autoridades, tiene que
is
ser
thought
pensado
not only for
también
authorities,
a
but it
nivel
has
de
to
sala de
be
aula, a nivel de los
thinking at the
supervisores
classroom
de
level,
ciertos cursos,
supervisor level
a
of certain
nivel de los
courses, or at the
directores,
level of the
a nivel de
directors
las autoridades intermedias y
and
por supuesto
different authorities, and
para
of
los
course,
niveles de
for
conducción. Y los
all
SIGED
of the
básicamente
levels
se
of the
asientan
different
sobre
jobs.
2
And also the
condiciones
EMIS has
esenciales, que
certain
son
conditions that have to do with
cuál es la
structural conditions,
infraestructura
which is what is the
tecnológica
infrastructure
que ese
having to do
sistema
with
tiene
technology that the
en
system
términos de
has in
dispositivos,
terms of devices,
conectividad, sistemas,
connectivity, systems,
plataformas. ¿Y cuáles
platforms.
son las reglas que
And
ese
what are the
sistema
rules
tiene que
that
ver
this
con
system
la
has?
gobernanza y
This
con
has
la
to do with governance
institucionalidad?
and with institutionality.
Entonces, de esa forma
So in that
desarrollamos
way, we
un instrumento
developed
que son
this tool,
85 preguntas
which is
cerradas
85
y un análisis
closed questions
cualitativo
and a
que permite,
qualitative analysis, which allows
ubicar a
us to be able
a los
to
sistemas
identify
educativos
or
evaluados
locate
en 4 categorías, siendo
in
la
4
categoría que está ahí
categories.
en rojo
And you can see the
latente,
category there in
la que
red
tiene mayores
is
desafíos,
the
la que no
one that
cubre los
has the
procesos ni
highest
las
challenges, the ones that does
condiciones
not cover
estructurales
the structural
lo,
conditions
que lo definen,
that
pasando por 2
that
intermedias,
they have. And then you have
incipiente
2 intermediate
y emergente para
and
llegar a
emerging. You have
las que están en
also
una condición de establecida. Y ahora les voy a
emerging
mostrar
and
cuáles son los
also incipient and emerging.
resultados de lo que hemos visto más o
And
menos
the
en unas
results of what we have
25
seen in
digamos,
about
aplicaciones. ustedes
what we have
ven,
seen in these
no
applications.
tenemos
But you can
ningún
see we
sistema
don't have any
educativo que
system
esté en una condición
that is in the
establecida.
condition that we can call
Tenemos
established. But we
algunos,
do
tenemos
have a
6 que
few.
están
We
en
have
una condición
6 who are in a
de
condition
emergente, una gran
that are in
mayoría en
emerging. We
incipiente,
do have
y
a
tenemos 3 que
majority
están
in
en una condición
incipient, and then we do
latente.
have 3 who are in a
Ahí como ven
latent
tenemos
condition.
sistemas
And as you can see,
educativos
we have educational
como
systems
subnacionales, como por ejemplo
like
Argentina, digamos,
Argentina,
Brasil, tenemos a
Brazil,
Perú,
we have
Uruguay,
Peru,
Bogotá, que
Uruguay,
Colombia,
Bogota,
que tiene también un
Colombia,
sistema
that has
bastante descentralizado,
a pretty
Dominicana,
decentralized
Paraguay,
system.
Jamaica
Dominican,
como
Paraguay,
países
Jamaica,
del Caribe, tenemos a
and the
Costa Rica,
Caribbean. We also have
Barbados,
Costa Rica,
Surinam
Barbados,
y tenemos
Suriname,
a
and
Honduras.
Honduras.
Entonces, tenemos muchos
We
desafíos
have
acá
quite a few
para
challenges here
trabajar en
to work
los procesos básicos.
on the
Y
basic
esto es una
processes.
condición
And this is a
necesaria
condition that is
para pensar en
necessary
explotar
to think about
la,
exploiting
la información para la
information
justicia social
for social
educativa, que es como
justice in
nos estamos
education, which is
planteando.
what
Ahora,
we have
esto
been
también
talking about.
brinda
So this also brings
otras
on other
posibilidades que tienen que ver
possibilities
con
which have to
pensar
do
en
with thinking
eficientizar los
of
macroprocesos,
making macro
como
processes more
decir, de
efficient.
gestión. Y ese es el
And
segundo
this
paso.
is the second step.
Y que tienen que ver también con
And it also has
procesos
to
que tienen
do
que
with
reflejar
processes
esa
that
idea
have
de
to
justicia,
reflect
esa idea,
that
como decir,
idea.
de equidad. Y ahí vemos un listado de cuáles
There
son
we
los
can see a
principales procesos
list of
que
the
a
main
nuestro juicio
processes
responderían a
that,
esto.
in
Uno
our
es
opinion, respond to this. One of
los
them has
procesos
to do
que
with
tienen
the
que ver con la
processes that have to do
matriculación de
with the
estudiante y con la
signing
formación de
the
grupos,
students up and the
cursos.
formation of
Otro
groups
es
and
cómo
courses. Another one has to do
se asignan a
with
los
how do you
profesores,
assign
no
teachers
solamente a las
not
escuelas, sino
only
a
in
cada
the
grupo,
schools, but into each
a cada
group,
grupo, a
in
clase.
each group
Aunque les
and
parezca
class.
mentira, los dos
And
procesos
even though it may not
más
seem
importantes
true, the most important processes
en cuanto a
having to
recursos, que
do
son
with
los de
resources,
infraestructura
which have
y
to
los
do with
de
infrastructure
recursos humanos, son
and
los más
human
débiles.
resources, are the
Entonces,
weakest.
mejorar la
So to
gestión
improve
de la
this management
infraestructura escolar
of
es
infrastructure is very
importante. La gestión de
important.
beca,
Yeah, the
transporte,
BECA
comida.
management,
Muchas veces
transportation,
estos puntos
foods, many
son
times these
realmente
points
necesarios
are
para apoyar
necessary to be
para que
able
los
to
estudiantes
support students
permanezcan dentro del
and to
sistema.
help
Y
them to
por
be able
último
to
tenemos a los
continue
sistemas
within the
de
system.
alerta temprana de la
And to also
deserción
have the early
escolar.
alert system.
Voy a pasar
3
para aquí
minutos para
antes.
terminar, Marcelo.
Sí. Hola.
Early warning.
3 minutos para cerrar.
Perfecto. Sí.
3 minutes.
Estoy ya cerrando. Un punto sobre los sistemas como como de protección.
As you can see, the
Trayectoria.
protection systems,
Básicamente se componen
basically, they have to
dos
do
partes,
with
lo que tiene
two
que ver con
parts,
lo que es detección
which
de
has to
los
do with detection
estudiantes que están
of
en riesgo
students
de,
who are at
abandono,
risk
y ahí
of
básicamente
abandoning
tenemos
their
como dos
education.
grandes
And also we have
grupos.
two
Uno
large
tiene que ver con
groups.
ciertos
One of them has to do
eventos.
with
Sucede
certain
un evento y
events.
tenemos
There is
algún
an event
mecanismo
and
como
we
para
have a certain
detectarlo,
mechanism to be able to
reportarlo,
detect
que
and
tiene
report,
que ver con, por ejemplo,
which has to do with, for
calificaciones,
example,
inasistencias,
grades, inassistant,
comportamiento,
and lack
como
of
decir,
attendance,
riesgos,
behavior, different risks
comportamiento
in
escolar
their
y lo que tiene
behavior
que
in
ver
the
con
school, and
factores
also
socioeconómicos. Y
social
ahora,
economical issues.
crecientemente,
And
cada
now,
vez más, estamos
more
con
and
el
more,
uso de la
we are with the
inteligencia
use
artificial,
of
que nos
artificial
permite, en base
intelligence,
a
which
grandes
allows us
masas
based on large masses of information, it allows us to generate algorithms having to do with automatic learning, which has predictive capabilities. And it allows us also then to predict what students are at risk. So we are actively supporting this in Chile, in Uruguay, in Brazil. And it also gives very good information for teachers and directors. And we also have the different interventions, because it is useless to detect if we have no interventions that have to do with money incentives or financial incentives or support for the schools and educational programs, and to have them be flexible as well. So now, to be able to close, what are we doing? All of this that I shared with you, we have 6 countries that we have these projects going on and being executed. We have 5 countries planned to be able to apply CHED during the year 2024. And we are in dialogue with Brazil, who wants to have the map of all Brazilian states regarding their maturity and regarding EMIS, and also the same for different 3 provinces in Argentina. And this specifically in Uruguay, we are, as infrastructure, students are learning, and we have the different human resources and tools that have to do with management. Brazil is soon to launch a program that is called the National Program of Educational Management, which is in the beginning going to have focus on the 26 states. Suriname is in a phase that is a little bit more initial in infrastructure and equipping, and on students, and also in the state of Pará in Brazil, which is also, we are also supporting. I think that there is an awareness that we need to work not so much on the averages, but we need to work with each student, each group, and we need to have a personalization that is more and more. And to be able to do so, we need to count on EMIS that are established, solid, and that is highly, very important. Thank you very much,
Muchas gracias, Marcelo. Y me quedo precisamente con esa última frase que mencionas. No se puede seguir trabajando por los programas, sino que debemos ir a cada estudiante y
sentence. We
entender
have to go to each
esa
student, not only
condición
with the averages.
exacta para
And
poder,
that is the
como dicen,
condition,
que no se quede
as you
nadie
said,
atrás.
that
Bueno,
we
ahora
cannot leave
seguimos
anybody
con la segunda
behind. And now
presentación
we will
que
continue with
está
the
a cargo de
second
María José
presentation that is
Sepúlveda,
going to
directora
be
de
in
evaluación
charge
de
of
SUMMA.
María José
María José cuenta con una amplia
Sepúlveda,
experiencia
and
precisamente en
she
vida
has a
política
broad
educativa. Ella
experience
es ingeniera
in
comercial con
the
mención en economía y
political
magíster en
and
política pública de la
education. She
Universidad
has
de Chile. María José nos
public
estará
policies
contando
from the University
precisamente
of Chile. María José,
una
who is the
experiencia
director of
muy
evaluation of
puntual
SUMMA, is
que da
going to tell
cuenta
us an
precisamente de cuál
experience
es esa
that is very
implicación de lo que es
specific, and that
para
she
la
will tell us
promoción de la
what
justicia
is
social. Así que,
the
María José,
role
adelante,
of
muchas
the
gracias por
EMIS for the
aceptar tu
social
invitación. Ahí
justice.
también para decir
So
que ya
thank you
tenemos
very
varias
much
preguntas para
to
Marcelo que también pueden
accept
ser
the
respondidas
invitation, and also you can
por el
ask
resto de
questions
ponentes
to Marcelo, and
y
that
las
can be
abordaremos en
replied
el
by
momento de
the
conversación
rest of the
interactiva.
speakers, and then we will cover that at the moment of the Q&A.
María José,
María José,
te escuchamos y te vemos.
we can see you and hear you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the previous presentation. And as you said, This is a very specific case. Thank you very much for the opportunity and the possibility of being here with you today. I would like to be in the place of the Occidental promotion of the social justice, the case that we have been discussing between the Ministry of Education and also the Inter-American Bank and SUMMA. And that is for the design and implementation and evaluation of this during this year. I just want to tell you that this is the structure of the presentation, and we will start with a brief context and the evolution of the system in Chile to locate ourselves, to know how we are, and as Marcelo said, how much we have progressed and how we have built this, and a brief presentation what is this system of the educational protection system in these educational journeys, what has been the cooperation of SUMMA in that work. And finally, I would like to tell you some learning experiences, and I will tell you about this in a minute. So, in terms of how we are and the evolution of the information system for the educational system in Chile, I would say that the first stage has been the management of the processes of enrollment, funding, infrastructure, and dotation, mainly because of the conditions and the processes that are in the base of the educational system, where we've got all the information that has been collected from the educational system and concentrated at the level of the territories and at the central level, allow us to continue in terms of the funding, scholarship, identification of the context of vulnerability to the relationship between the ones that have a bigger need and to allocate the corresponding resources. And in terms of learning experiences, we have collected information regarding what was the evaluation of the learning experiences of the students. And of course, this generated, we've got many processes of information collection with different actors and different focuses. So in the end, we've got a low integration of the information, of the quality and the validity of the records, and also with the security of information. So with this, we can go to the second area, second focus of this development, and specifically in the case of Chile, where we are in the need of going to trying to integrate the information systems and to guarantee those structural conditions and the management processes. What we've got here, we've got a strong development in a unique platform at the level of educational system to integrate all the information from the administrators or the management areas and the characteristics of infrastructure, education, and also with other characteristics in terms of the context, and also the dotation of the assistants, and of course the students of the system. Of course, now we've got this platform that allow us to identify that population in a context of higher vulnerability, to identify some gaps of foreign populations that may be in a lower income, or some other populations that will need another kind of support. So in the second stage, we will focalize those resources and also those contexts that may be more complex. Within some of the platforms of policies that I would like to mention is that we have moved forward from this information system. We have been trying to provide certain subsidies to the population that have a bigger need, given their socioeconomical aspects. So we were also able to work with the teachers' evaluation to see what is the level of professional level and the needs and the personal of education that is working in the system. And also, we have been able to work with those minimum conditions, such as to have a centers of responsibility, to work with the interoperability of the system, to avoid the data duplicity, and to move forward and to be as efficient as possible with the system of information that would allow not only to collect information, but also to use it. On this line, we have moved forward to standardize and to be more transparent with the information that we've got at hand. So all the work that we do within the Ministry of Education with the Center of Studies of the Ministry and this National Center of Technology that is within the ministry to standardize, validate, and also to make sure about the replication of the databases that we can have with different indicators that have been a huge effort. And today we have it and we can share it in a platform of data that has been very important in the Chilean system. Access to information, internal and external, and we've got certain progresses that we have been able to have in terms of making sure that we will protect the information. A third dimension in this second stage of systematization and also use of data is everything that has to do with the national system of quality assurance in the preschool, elementary, and higher education. And that is important for all the students to the evaluation, the support, the constant support for the different educational centers. On this regard, it has been a huge progress by trying to integrate and to complement the different sources of information and the different sorts of education. So as I said before, we've got a rich database in terms of unique cases that would allow us to do some analysis at the level of the individual cases. But we also know that we've got the need to integrate the different sources and not only to make available this information, but to make use of this information for the decision making progress. So we need to use that data to cross this information to inform the decision in terms of the quality of the education for the girls and boys and also teenagers. We have moved forward by trying to use this information to have a systems of early warning and also with the enrollment, the offers of the different educational centers, and the identification of critical cases, such as the dismiss of some students, and that had been part of these efforts by trying to use this information for the decision making to also to be part of the discussion and the focus in that justice, educational justice by keeping what is important for the student and the protection of the systems. And now, how do we see this? And before going to this third stage, I would like to give you an idea about how is this translated into different access to information, different platforms. We've got a database that where we've got the educational community to use this information, but it can be not really friendly at the moment of processing this and to identify what is that we need to have. Some other efforts that we commented and we can visualize here is within the educational communities. How do we present this information to them? We have made some effort from the central level to support certain critical indicators at the level of the territorial and intermediate and also the schools. And we have moved forward with this school admission is so that we can guarantee that all our children and students, they can also have a right to have education. But along with this, we have also developed different models of data use because we realize that the system so far we have had available different sources of information, but not necessarily we have been working in the capacities, in the reinforcement of the institutional levels at different levels. So that's why we have been working in the modeling of the data use, and the Agency of the Quality Assurance has had a key role by trying to add different seminars and courses of empowerment for the decision making. And we've got different tools of orientation that are going to have the reflective use for the decision making progress. And together with that, as I said, the system moved forward by integrating this focus of quality to integrate and to make sure not only the enrollment, the attendance, the learning experience, and to understand the quality of the system, not only in the results in the learning areas that are associated to the curriculum, but in also some other quality indicators. So the system for quality assurance may have the different institution by trying to integrate the different areas that we've got in the system around the Ministry of Education, the agency of quality that is going to assess and have an orientation the system will check, and the information of the superintendents of education. We have been trying to articulate this different institution by trying to make decisions from the evidence and what has been generated in the system of information that was generated. On this regard, and going back to this stage that I just mentioned about how was the experience in the Chilean case, we have seen that it's in the second stage. The progress has been very important by trying to build information system that would allow us to support the decision making. We have pushed the system into a level that not necessarily we were expecting, where the rankings and the standard evaluation may be an evaluation that may be a punishment and not an integrated evaluation system. So what we have identified and the next stage of this development that brings the system will bring us to the third stage, that from the Ministry of Education, we keep having a system for the trajectory of education where we can have and to cover the trajectory of all students. The diagnose starts from the educational system, and what we have seen in interrupted and also that are discontinued and intermittent, and the right to education is not being present. And with that, we can see that there are some rights that are being under certain vulnerability. So I just want to tell you what is this system of protection of this educational journey, and where are we having all of this in order to have the decision making. So what is expected with this system? Well, is to see what is the progress of all the students, starting from this analysis and interpretation, and that is provided through a system. This system is being done from the Ministry of Education with the support from the Inter-American Bank of Development and SUMMA. We've got three components. The first one is to have an institutionality that will set the governance of the programs, where we can guarantee an institution that will allow us to manage the policies and the actions of a second component, which is a system of information and follow-up that is integrated, where all this data that I just mentioned will be available in a unique platform in a couple of key indicators that would allow us to facilitate the work and the reflection based on these indicators. So on this system of being there to local programs. So in terms of the actors, this is a system that is going to be working in three levels. At the macro level, focusing on the global areas, at the meso regional, and in that is at territorial levels, we will have a mixed approach, both are global and individual, that would allow the use of this data to articulate this in a better manner, the decision within the territory, and within a micro at a school level, where we are going to reinforce the processes at the level of focal programs, which players are going to have a key role on this process or in management of cases. The educational system at the level of the institution is going to offer the governance and the articulation of the system, and then the institutional actions for the improvement of the educational system. So at an individual system, we're going to have the educational system with the intersectors so that we can manage the cases of critical children or that may be at risk. How do we see this? This is a platform that, of course, is trying to visualize the different levels of aggregation from the courses, the student records in particular, some system at the level of the school system, certain warnings, some key indicators that I mentioned before to include the conversation and the reflection from this information that is key. In terms of the accompanying model, to make the information available is not enough. So going into the implementation of this system, this will bring a system that will reinforce the territorial areas that will join you with to the schools and the management of individual cases and the most complex ones, so that we are not going to be there just in the averages, but to see those cases that are being left aside of the system. And in terms of the cooperation, and just to close this, from our point of view, we would like to summarize what was the support and the cooperation that we have provided, the design and the implementation of the improvements of this system for the protection of the educational journey. I would say that, first of all, is to recognize that we are not starting from scratch. There is a trajectory and an evolution of the system, and the system has moved forward by trying to improve, standardize, and to nourish their processes. So the evolution of the system and also the learning experiences have been key to incorporate them into this system, to reinforce the cooperation for the reflection of the objectives of the system, and has been key. And from SUMMA, the idea has been asking what is the added value of this system in the actions, both for the educational system and also at the level of the territory. Let's not forget that all the efforts has been very important. So we need to be in a logic of providing different inputs and also to move forward into a logic of results. How do we want it and how are we going to achieve it? So the next point has been key, to work with a tool with a working tool from the change of theory in order to facilitate those key definitions. How? Based from the logic of the inputs to a logic of results. How can we do this process or this system? How can we make this to have the efficiency? And from there, we have been using the cycles of improvements to open those black boxes, and how from the guidances of the ministry, how we can close those gaps of evidence. And finally, from SUMMA, it has been from the systematization of the focus of evaluation and from the improvement. We have been thinking about it in this project by setting the evidence and the best practices so that we can have a complement and we can nourish the design and improvement of this system from the local experiences, where a key point of our process has been with the evaluation of the processes in order to have a feedback and from the key indicators as the assistance and the pertinence, and to see if it works and how it works. And finally, I just want to show you what we have seen so far. This is a cooperation that is still in progress, but I just want to close this with some key messages. The
Local
the
context is
context
relevant for
and
the
the
use.
local relevance has been very important. The localization has been very important in the use of the pertinent information that is updated and has been key to work not only to provide information from the central system, but also with the local actors. What is it and what do we have from their own experience, and how that is going to this, to have a conversation to what we've got. We need to have a key experience to systematize the best practices. That has been very important to what we would like to live as part of these learning experiences. And within what we've got and what we need to continue doing, of course, we need to continue working in the interoperation of the different systems so that we can make it more efficient, the data collection, and to avoid the duplicity of actions, to try not to have the duplicity of actions, and also never stop working in this process. So in the question, what do we want to measure and why and what for? And if this is going to improve in order to move forward into those expected results. And with that, we can continue with this integrated
Muchas
information
gracias, María
system.
José, por esa
Thank you very
excelente
much. And thank you,
presentación.
Maria
Me
Jose,
quedo
from
con
the
varias cosas
wonderful
que planteabas de la
presentation. I was
información
thinking about
contextualizada, relevante
the
para la
key
realidad
information for
de
the
las diferentes
reality,
realidades latinoamericanas.
the
Y es
different
precisamente
realities
esas
in Latin
preguntas
America.
de
And
las
that is
invitaciones
one
claves que
of
queremos
the
hacer. Tal
key
vez esta pueda
invitations
ser una
that would like
pincelada muy
to do.
rápida
Maybe
y
this is
sé que se
going to be
implementa en
just
Chile,
a
pero
brief
justamente eso es lo que
experience
queremos
of
hacer,
what is being implemented in
invitarlos a
Chile,
que
but
tengan
we want to
puentes.
invite you
Sabemos que
to have some
muchos de ustedes
bridges,
comparten
and
los
we know
mismos
that many of
desafíos, las
you,
mismas
you
preguntas.
share the
Le
same
pregunto muy
questions, the
directo a
same
María José
challenges, and here we
para
have
en otros
a
espacios
direct
ahora
channel
bien
with Maria
intervenir.
Jose
Muchas
so we can
gracias.
go deeper
Y
into
bueno,
that.
ahora nos
Thank you
gustaría movernos
very
un
much.
poco geográficamente y visitar las islas del Caribe Oriental para conocer cómo se ha venido
We're going
dando
to
este
visit
proceso de implementación de una
the Eastern
estrategia
Caribbean
de
islands
EMIS,
and to
todos
see
esos
the
acuerdos,
different
prioridades,
agreements and the
desafíos
priorities and challenges
que
that
han
we have
sobrellevado ya durante
seen
un
that have
tiempo y para eso contamos con Jermaine Anthony.
been
Jermaine Anthony es especialista
that they have
técnico en
been handling, and
educación
Jermaine
y
is
la
going
unidad de
to talk
gestión del
to us
desarrollo
about this. And he
educativo
is a
de
professional in education
OECS.
from
Jermaine tiene una
OECS,
experiencia de
and
más de
he
30
has
años en el sector
more than 30 years of
educativo, es profesor
experience
y
in
posee una
educational system. He
licenciatura
is a
en
teacher and he
ciencias de
has
la computación y
a
gestión. Además, tiene
PhD, and he also
tiene
has
un magíster de
a
diseño de medios
master's in the
interactivos. Jermaine,
design
muchísimas
of
gracias por aceptar
interactive
esta invitación. Siempre es un
areas.
gusto
And thank you
tenerlos
very much
acá
for your
y
accepting this
acercarnos un
invitation
poco a
and
esa realidad
for coming to this reality
tan parecida a la nuestra, pero con
that is so
ciertas
similar to
particularidades.
ours, but with certain
Jermaine,
differences. Jermaine, please go ahead.
démosle un segundo
Let's give
para
him
él.
one
Sí, aquí está con
second.
nosotros.
Here he is with us.
Jermaine, are you there? Maybe.
Yes, I am. Sorry about
Okay,
that. We've been
wonderful.
having
Don't
some
worry.
connectivity issues.
Don't worry.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so it's my turn to start. My connection had dropped a moment ago. Okay, no problem. So just allow me to share my presentation in a minute. I'm gonna get started.
For sure.
Yeah. Mm. Let's make sure I have the correct one. There we go. And please let me know if you're already seeing my screen.
Not in full presentation, but
Yes, that is true. That is true. But I want to make sure you've seen it.
okay.
Okay, there we go. Right. So thank you, Ma. Thank you, Raul, and the rest of the team at KICS and SUMMA for allowing the OACS Commission to be part of this whole conversation on EMIS for social justice. We have a lot to be thankful for the collaboration with KICS and SUMMA over the years in a number of areas, EMIS just being one of them. But we think very generally, for the purposes of research and for exchange, transfer of knowledge in education, this partnership has served us very, very well. So this today.
Jeremy, are you there? Ok, estamos teniendo algunos problemas de conexión con Jeremy.
I think I am back.
Yes, you are back.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. This is the fourth time we've had that issue today. Just let me try sharing again. I will try to be quick because maybe that way I can get as much as possible through. Are you seeing the presentation again?
Not in presentation mode.
Wow. How can I adjust that? I may have to. It's not sure. What about now? What
Yes.
about now? Okay, great. All right, so colleagues, I will proceed as quickly as I can. So the OASIS has long recognized the importance of EMIS, and what you're seeing there is a little snippet of a 1998 publication which spoke to the importance of education management information systems in the region. And really, the idea was that we needed to support the education planning process, and we needed to monitor progress in terms of work being done in the education sector. So I think I can say that this has been a long outstanding problem for the region. I wanted to identify some of the issues, and forgive the graphic. I just wanted to identify some of the challenges that have undermined the efforts we've had in the region to implement EMIS. The first one, of course, is the cost comes very high for us. Not that the cost is not high elsewhere, but given our context as small island developing states, populations ranging from 180,000 to sometimes 80,000 in a country, the average cost of a mature solution can be quite prohibitive for small countries. The infrastructure, and I speak to internet, access to devices, even power, electricity, and so on, that it has been developing over the last 20 years. And so even when we would have made efforts to implement EMIS, you would have found that the supporting infrastructure was not necessarily there to make it work as seamlessly or as maybe as efficiently as it might today, as of course technology infrastructure keeps improving. Human capacity issues remains a problem, and yet it is something that if we go back another 20 years, we would have found it was a bigger issue. Other than that, I think with respect to policy matters and the insularity in some cases of some participating member states, is that you find we have not come to a consensus on what exactly the EMIS is supposed to do and what it takes to run it, what exactly should be the focus of it. And these are some of the issues, some of the challenges. Of course, from time to time, you have change in the political sphere, and from one government to the next, one administration to the next, the priorities change. And so the commitment has not always been very sure for EMIS over that period. Of course, when we see conflicts of interest, we speak to sometimes the interest that the provider may have and how that might be different to what the actual needs are on the ground. The Commission is convinced that a regional approach is best. Of course, one of our key strategic imperatives as an OSS Commission is regional integration. That is essentially why we exist, to bring the region together for education, for health, for the environment, and various other sectors. And so it makes sense if data collection, data management in education is a necessity, that we can take this on collectively. And again, remember, we are quite small. The total population of the OSS is no more than 660,000 maybe. Already we have been doing work at the primary school level in terms of harmonizing the education, the curriculum at that level. And so harmonization of education sector goals, the what we call the OESS Education Sector Strategy, that is another initiative which we have already been working on. And so it makes sense to tackle the EMIS issue collectively. And not to mention, because of the limited resources, it makes sense to seek economies of scale, thereby reducing costs per member state. One of the things we're very concerned about, of course, is sustainability, how we are able to sustain EMIS in the region. Our experiences, plural, with that in the last few years is that the costs tend to be so high, the requirements on the technical capacity tends to be such that the ministries have difficulty in sustaining those systems, even when they are not in full implementation mode. So what has happened in the last few years and months? I have just a very quick breakdown. I will not go through all the detail of it, but just to say that the ministers of education some time ago would have placed a mandate to say, look, we need to do something about EMIS in the region. And coming out of that, a regional EMIS technical working group was set up to look into EMIS more seriously. After which we had examined or viewed a number of EMIS presentations. Once that was done, we were able now to invite some of those presenters to our policy makers, our decision makers, our chief education officers, permanent secretaries, ministers. And one of the other things we were able to do was to develop an evaluation tool to compare or to measure different EMIS solutions.
Tal vez estamos teniendo algunos inconvenientes nuevamente con el
It
internet
seems
de
we are
Germain, con la
having
conexión.
some issues with Jermaine's connection.
Esperemos 3 segundos,
Let's wait a few seconds.
sino en honor al tiempo
If
podríamos
not,
pasar
due to time,
a hacer algunas preguntas,
we can
darle
go ahead
respuesta a
and
algunas
ask some
preguntas que hemos tenido
questions and
en el
start
chat,
responding to
tanto para
some of the
Marcelo
questions that
como
have been
para
in the
María
chat from
José.
Marcelo and Maria Jose in
Okay,
the
and
meantime.
Germain is aquí. Dale, Germain.
yes, that seems to be the the thread this today. Let me just see if I can get back to that presentation mode. I'm sharing. Are we seeing?
Yes. Hmm.
Are you hearing
Lament-
me?
Yes, right now we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay, can you see the full screen?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So I'll just move along from there. So our regional EMIS task force is established. It's comprised of representation or representatives, sorry, from various member states. And so now the next steps, we're looking to develop the terms of reference and the specifications for this EMIS. It's important for us to talk about what the priorities for this EMS are, because that is important for deciding the pace, the scope, and how broadly we go in terms of its development. Important for us is monitoring of our OESS education sector strategy and those goals. As well, we need to keep up with reporting progress on our SDG 4 indicators. And just recently, we've been engaging more deeply with UIS. And so we've had individual meetings with those countries to seek to provide additional support. So certainly EMIS is regarded as one of the top priorities in being able to report effectively and on time on our progress on SDG 4 indicators. From the OECS perspective as well, we do have, every year we develop a regional digest. Countries develop their own national digest as well. And we expect that an EMIS solution would definitely accelerate and improve the delivery of that digest. We certainly think an EMIS would assist with the automation of certain workflows and the integration, which is not on this.
Entendemos que estas cosas pasan.
We understand that these things
Así
happen.
que lamentamos eso sí.
So
Un
we
poco, ahí estás.
are okay, there he is.
All right, I'm back again. So I'm going to proceed to the next slide. Apologies, everyone. We have an ideal for what we want in terms of an EMIS, and all these words sort of have to capture what we have in mind. I mean, that's very future-looking, very user-friendly, very reliable, robust, sustainable, and these are some of the key words. I will go further than that. I don't want to detail so much, but you can see this list on the screen showing so much of what we learned about our through our mission in Guyana, and a lot of which I think now informs our approach going forward with the development of EMIS, and that is the.
Parece que siempre que intervengo vuelve la señal de Germain. Veamos si esta vez nos funciona.
Seems that every time that I intervened, then
Si no, como les comentábamos,
he has the
podríamos
signal back. So
avanzar
otherwise,
algunas preguntas claves,
we can move
aunque en el chat
forward
ya
with
se han
some
venido
key
respondiendo
questions. But
algunas.
still in the chat, we
Sería
have
interesante,
been
en todo caso,
listening.
conocer. Tenemos una pregunta
And
general
we've got a general
tanto
question
para Marcelo como para María
for
José.
Marcelo
Y en
and
el caso que
also for
Germain se
Maria
pueda
Jose.
conectar
And in the
nuevamente,
case of
también
Jermaine
sería
can get
interesante conocer
connected,
su perspectiva
it
sobre
will
eso.
also be quite
Nos
interesting
gustaría conocer
to
un
know
poco
his opinion about it.
cuáles
So we would like
consideran
to
ustedes que son
know,
los elementos
what
claves
do you
para desarrollar
consider
los
are the key elements
EMIS,
to
considerando que
develop the
los
EMIS,
diferentes países
considering
tienen
that the
puntos
different
de partida
countries,
bien
they've got a starting point
diferentes?
that are quite
No sé
different.
si Marcelo
I don't
se
know if
aventura a darnos una
Marcelo
respuesta
can
sobre
give
esto, también María
us
José
an idea, Maria Jose,
y Jermaine si está con nosotros también.
and Jermaine, if
Yes,
you're
I'm
with us
back
as
now.
well.
What do you want to do? Do you want I'm not sure I
Eh,
heard your last few words.
Sure. ¿Qué te parece si mientras se
What do
estabiliza un
you
poco tu internet,
think
le
that
damos
while your
cada
internet
una
get
pregunta que
more
tenemos tanto para
stable,
Marcelo, para María
maybe
José y
we
para
can
ti también?
answer to a question that we've got for you, Maria Jose,
Mm.
and other
Okay,
people?
are you
What
hearing
do
me
you
now?
think?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right.
Or do you
Well,
want to try to finish?
I will continue. I'm almost done.
Okay,
So
okay. Go
just let
ahead,
me
go ahead.
share quickly. Um, Today is quite unusual with the way the internet's been. I was just saying very quickly that we have developed a sort of a model for our EMIS, how we're going to approach it. Not everything is yet in place, but this is, of course, thanks coming to the experience we've had with the knowledge exchange. And we have a bit of a draft deployment plan, which we've shared with KICS. And we think we're well on our way. My colleagues who are here are coming from St. Lucia and Grenada. And Grenada is more or less a
Jermaine, are you there?
ask any questions of them. But that basically concludes my presentation of what we've been doing in the region with EMS development. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Jermaine. Esta es una experiencia que
Thank you very
queremos
much,
relevar
Jermaine. This
muchísimo
is an
porque es una
experience
experiencia
that we would
subregional en
like
donde
to
efectivamente, como lo
highlight
menciona
because
Jermaine,
this is an
hay muchos
experience,
países
and as he said, there
poniendo a
are so
disposición
many
los
countries
esfuerzos
put it into
nacionales para
making
construir una
available the
estrategia
national
regional. Voy a
efforts
retomar
to
la
get to
pregunta
know this
que
regional
estábamos
strategy.
haciendo.
So I
Jermaine, por
just want to
favor,
take it
te invitamos
the
también a dar tus
Jermaine,
ideas frente
please,
a esto.
you
La
can give
pregunta era
us your
un
opinion
poco sobre
about it.
cuáles consideran
The
ustedes que
idea
son
is,
esos
what do you
elementos
think
claves
are those
para
key
desarrollar los
elements in order
SIMS,
to develop
considerando que
the
los puntos de partida son
MIIS?
bastante
Because the
diferentes para
starting
cada
points are
país?
quite different for each
Bien,
country.
creo que es una
Well,
pregunta,
I think that
importante eso
this is
por
an important
varias cosas. Yo
question
creo que los
for
temas
many
son, uno,
reasons. The
nuestros sistemas
topics are
educativos tienen
that
muchos
our
sistemas
educational systems,
informáticos
they've
legados que
got
vienen,
lots
digamos,
of deployed
que vienen
systems
históricamente
that
y
comes
que
from different
es muy
places historically,
complicado
and it
comenzar
is quite
de forma
complicated
cero.
to
Un
start
poco
from zero, from
lo que le
scratch.
respondía a Martín.
This
Nosotros
is what I
cuando
was telling
empezamos a
Martin.
pesquisar
When
sobre
we
este tema,
start with
nuestra
this,
idea era como encontrar
our
como,
idea was to find
como el santo grial de los, como
the
de los
Holy Grail
EMIS. Les
of
digo, no lo
the
busquen porque eso solo lo
EMIS, and
encuentra
I'm telling you,
Indiana
don't look for
Jones
that because
en
only
las
Indiana
películas de
Jones
con
will
Chacón.
find it in the Lost
Entonces,
Ark.
realmente como que la
So
solución es tener
honestly, the solution
una plataforma
is
de
to have a
gestión
platform of
interoperable y
management
que
that can
dialogue entre
have a
partes.
dialogue
Y eso es bien
among them.
así
So
importante.
And that is quite important. So this is for the ones that may have a system with a certain functionality. There is a second point that is very important that I just mentioned before, some unique identifiers. There are some countries that do not have a unique identifiers among students. In general, there are some countries that may identify positions, but they cannot identify the teachers. And there are so many problems with the identification of infrastructure. And the dialogue between the management system with the wages and the teachers' managements are kind of weak. So there is a huge opportunity there. And I would say that there is a third topic because we need to think how you need to have an EMIS that is going to be placed with your institutional framework. For a federal country, the national states are consolidators of a training, and the ones that provide this and manage them are the subnational, the ones that have a responsibility on a group. Because so many times in the big countries, we try, sometimes we're not very successful, but we try to have this at a federal level, and so many times it doesn't work. It is also worth for some system that may have a certain degree of decentralization. So just by summarizing, we've got unique identifiers. We need to know that we've got some systems that are part of a legacy system, and we need to have more than just one system. We need to have a platform that will speak and will have an interoperation, and we need to know under which institutional framework we are implementing all this. Marcelo, thank you very much. Maria Jose? No, I just want to add that from the experience that we have had in this work with the system of protection, we do not forget the starting point, reinforce the conditions and the characteristics of the context. And for that, we need to have a tool for establishing the priorities that will help us to identify which system, which sort of information we can provide to the system to add it, to see what sort of decision could be key to identify the system and what do we need to develop in terms of the institutionality. Some of the key elements that I would like to mention as part of what sort of information do we need to generate in this exchange, and well, the need of setting these capacities, and that will be part of the regional governments, and we need to build some international capacities at the level of state institutionality so that we can leave the information there and continue building from bridging the institutions that we already have. Thank you, Maria Jose. Germaine, I think this question will really help to complement all these regional effort that you do. So what do you consider are those key elements to develop an important EMIS, considering that the starting point from the countries of the Eastern Caribbean can be very important?
Okay, did I have it right? Is it a question for me?
Yes.
Just confirming. Okay. Yes, so I think looking at what, well, from our experience in Guyana, in Bahamas more recently, it's important for everyone to get the vision as to what the EMIS is supposed to do. I think from our own perspective, we sort of always saw EMIS as a solution that is packaged within the software itself, and then that would solve the problems. But it really isn't that. The EMIS really should work with and work to support the implementation of your education sector plan. That is at least my perspective on it. That you're implementing a plan to improve access to education, quality of education, all of that. But then there are a number of indicators that you need to be able to first identify and to measure and to keep track of. And that is what the EMIS should be doing. So at the end of the day, the EMIS should be able to give you that information on a timely basis so that you know whether you're making progress on your initiatives or not. So it's something that's very integral to what the Ministry of Education is doing. It is something that is also important for the integration of the work of the ministry with the other social services, your Ministry of Health, your social inclusion and protection services, all of that. So that is important to get right, what that vision is. It's important for there, of course, to be the necessary policy that is in place, and that is to speak to the governance issues. And so the policies will affect matters of having the right personnel in place, but also at the very, I guess, lowest level to make sure that teachers at the schools understand that giving information or entering data is part of their role as teachers in the system. There has to be a management structure for it, and that has to, in my view, reside within, well, we call it in the region the corporate planning section of the Ministry of Education, because it really is about engineering and re-engineering your education system to deliver better. It is not principally an IT function. An EMIS is not an IT tool. It really is a planning tool. In addition to that, you need to have the necessary infrastructure. And of course, you need to have the training, ongoing training that is going to help to complement not just the use of the EMIS, but the continuing development of the EMIS. One of the things we learned is that you cannot really undertake an EMIS implementation with all the functions, bells and whistles all at once. You really have to scale it in a way that you begin with the most basic functions first. So for example, your how do you call it? Registration, attendance, those basic things first. And then as teachers and learners and even the leaders themselves get accustomed to what is it this system can do, then you can add on the other features like your report carding, your report cards, your grades, systems, etc., etc. So that is how I'll respond to that. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jermaine. Y muchas gracias a todos los ponentes por tan
Thank you,
interesante
Jermaine, and thank you very much to all the speakers. I know that we're a little bit late, but still, we've got the chats, we've got all this open for you to do, to ask questions. And as you know, all this is divided into two blocks. And in the first part, we're going to close it. And then the idea is to give you an overview to what are the general challenges for the region. And now we will go to a second block where we will have 4 experiences of implementation, national and sub-regional ones that we would like you to be with us. So Raul, please let's do a wrap-up and then we will take a break. Thank you, Mark, and thank you to all the presenters, Marcelo Pérez from the Inter-American Development Bank, and also Maria Jose from SUMMA, and also the people, the person, I'm sorry, from the organization of the states of the Eastern Caribbean. We also see that there are some key challenges that we need to cover, starting with the unique identifiers, and those are key elements that Marcelo, when we talk about the governance about the system, and to have this companionship to develop what Maria Jose just mentioned from the technical point of view of learning of the study tours that we have learned. And as Germain said, we have learned about this possibility of having a point of view, what it means to represent, to have an EMIS, and it goes beyond the technological implementation. We need a vision and a roadmap, the right way that we need to go to identify that this is a view in the short and in the long term. This is not something that we're going to solve overnight, but we need to have a strategic point. And lastly, I just want to reinforce the idea that all of this has a meaning. And that's why we call it and we insist with this idea of the EMIS for the social justice. This is not just the data just because or the evidence, but we are aiming to have an educational justice and to close these gaps, gender gaps with the students, with the migrants students, and the indigenous, with the rurality, with the LGBTQ plus, and all those communities that needed a special focus, and we are working on that. Now we are going to have a short break, coffee for 5 minutes, and then we will continue with the national experience with Honduras, St. Lucia, and Grenada from the national point of view, and then we will finish with the global point of view with the experience led by the University of Oslo and the point of view with the IRDC from Canada. 5 minutes break, and then we can continue. Thank you very much, everybody. Continue with the second part of this at the national experiences of EMIS, national, regional, and sub-regional. So thank you very much, everybody, for the ones who are still connected. And now we're going to start with the second part of the conversation. And as Raul said, we've got 4 experiences for Kickslab. It is key to visualize the experiences, those experiences that you've got on site. So this is what worked, what didn't work, and what we have been seeing and the different challenges. So that is why we want you to analyze, to see the experiences, to have a conversation point in order to share and learn, because that is the generosity to the one that we invite you, all of this, all of you. So we will see 2 key experiences which are going to complement the regional vision that Jermaine was showing. One is with the Ministry of Education from St. Lucia and Granada. We've got Jeanette Leon that has been a planning officer within the unit of planification of the Ministry of Education since 2018. And then we've got a Kidikutu, and she is from the Ministry of Education from Granada. It is quite interesting, these 2 profiles that we've got, because precisely those are 2 key roles that are part of those teams that work with the different strategies of SIGIP and on EMIS. Chanel, are you there?
Chanel,
Chanel, are you there?
Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon,
afternoon,
Chanel.
everyone. Or good day, good morning, if given the various time zones. Yes, thank you very much. No doubt this is a very insightful session. And in the case of St. Lucia, we recognize that from since the 90s, yes, through to now, various efforts, and of course, most recently. Very grateful for the opportunity of the study tour, which took place in Guyana, December 2023. It really hit home for St. Lucia what has been a critical gap concerning establishing the kind of EMIS to allow for transforming education in St. Lucia. And more than anything else, the policy environments, that policy environment that is a requirement. It is imperative to have a policy environment to support the EMIS, recognizing that's, a policy environment that truly articulates our various roles and responsibilities for the functioning of the EMIS across all levels, ground level, district level, central level of education. In St. Lucia, to this point, we do not have an EMIS and education data policy. We do have an IT policy, yes, but with respect to strengthening, making that environment, making all the various considerations, infrastructural considerations, programming considerations, data security considerations, functionalities, and all of those other, every consideration concerning the EMIS, it needs to be grounded in a strong policy environment. And this is what we have recognized, in keeping with the way forward for education. We would have just about completed the development of our new education sector plan. And we note how, again, how important it is that the establishment of an EMIS that is truly functional and sustainable would certainly allow for us monitoring and being very mindful of the progress that we make with respect to our education sector plan objectives and targets. And so coming back to the policy, coupled with the political support for an EMIS, that policy environment is so crucial because in St. Lucia, we had actually, in years gone by, creatively navigated our human resource capacity, ensuring human resource capacity for the operationalization of the EMIS. And what was that? In fact, throughout our schools, we had various teachers, in fact, identified as EMIS coordinators, that their workloads, their teaching workloads were reduced to allow for them being able to certainly assist with the operationalization, allow for that real implementation on the ground of the EMIS. However, this certainly that those EMIS coordinators throughout our various schools was so identified, and as it were, we had, varied levels of commitment among them, but it came to a point where that, yes, in the absence of that policy environment truly spelling out that, these are my roles and responsibilities, the resistance to performing, the functions, the taking on the responsibilities as it pertains to the EMIS functioning in the absence of a strong policy environment, unfortunately, our previous efforts certainly took a hit in light of being able to establish an EMIS. And so, given that it is so true, what Jermaine would have pointed out, we see And we can appreciate firsthand that an EMIS is so much more than just, the software, than just the platform, than just the infrastructure, than just, the data. And EMIS truly speaks to an organizational transformation. It really speaks to that kind of, and again, in keeping with policy to back it up, it speaks to that mindset effecting that paradigm shift to recognize how an EMIS-friendly, reality would certainly allow us, all of us across education, ground level, whether it be teachers, whether it be, secretariat staff across schools with respect to bursars, secretaries. I mean, we look at MOE, district level, whether it be district education officers, I mean, our principals, of course, at the school. We look at various Ministry of Education colleagues at the central office, at the central level, be it your curriculum officers, be it your planning officers, be it your IT officers, etc. A real EMIS is truly a full-scale, holistic environment, which is why, again, for eliciting that kind of realization, for if being able to make inroads into effecting that mindset, you see that strong a policy environment that is very much favorable to an EMIS sets that tone for being able to create that environment going forward so that the EMIS can truly work and be sustainable and beyond everything, allow us to fulfill our roles in such a way that we are actually able, through our efforts, to transform education.
Chanel, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Chanel. I don't know if you have something more to add, or maybe we can go to Kate.
If there's something I can add at this time, the quality of relationships.
Okay.
And again, relationships across all of our stakeholders at the various points in the education landscape. That plays a great role, with respect to operationalizing, bringing about that environment in education that would truly allow an EMIS to take root and bear fruit. That's it for now.
Thank you very much, Chanel. Muchas gracias. Siempre es muy emocionante escucharte.
Thank you very much. It's always very exciting to listen to you because we know of the great work that you are implementing in St. Lucia. And we would like now to allow Kate to speak, who from a different role, from a different perspective, can also share with us the challenges that Granada is having today.
We cannot hear you. Kate, sorry. Kate, sorry, we cannot hear you properly. Let me just check. No, we cannot hear you. We can still not hear you.
Want to?
Yeah, right
Oh
now.
my.
Thanks.
The IT guy is having the problem. Oh my.
Don't worry.
Right. Grenada. This is not the first time we are trying to implement EMIS in Grenada. We had efforts before, but for this iteration, we are in the early stage of implementation. we're using Open EMIS, and we are working with Community System Foundation. All right. Our intention was to roll out EMIS earlier this year, but thanks to the study tour, we we have learned so much from the study tour that we needed to go back on the table to strengthen our design and implementation. I can't emphasize more than what my colleague have done on policies that needs to be in place for implementation, and the fact that EMIS is not just about the technology, it's an organizational transformation. It involves every person from the teacher, school, up to planning, attendance officers. Everyone has to be on board and ensuring data integrity is maintained throughout. Again, reporting regionally, and so it's so important there. For us in Grenada, we have selected 9 schools to pilot EMIS, Open EMIS. We have an opportunity here because most of our schools, well, all of our schools have internet access, and all our teachers, they do have access to device from the government. We identified the 9 schools, identified focal points, and one thing we learned again from identifying the focal points, it's not to identify IT teachers or someone who is competent in IT. We need someone with a passion for transformation and for pushing the system forward. So we have learned through both study tours that make it a volunteer system. Don't just appoint someone at the school level, because we wouldn't have the push that we want to. All right. At the ministry, though, we are working with the IT unit and the planning unit. It is headed by the planning unit, and for all reasons, we know why it's headed by the planning unit from discussions for the right? It's a small team, but again, thanks to the study tool, we realize that the ideal human resource that is needed to implement such a system, it's more than IT and planning, and it's a robust team that is needed when it comes to monitoring, training, which I'll highlight a little lower down. But anyway, our main goal for the implementation or the rolling out of EMIS is to collect students' data and use the attendance management system, right? For a start, remember that system needs data for us to start making use of it. For the policymakers to see that, hey, you can push funding there so that you can get better information to make more informed decisions, more informed policy decisions. So that's our main goal. In Grenada, we have collected data from our 9 schools already. Simultaneously, we have requested that data from the other schools, looking to roll out with the other schools in January. But for September, we're going to roll out with the 9 schools. Hurricane Beryl didn't make it easier for us in terms of the challenges that we have been experiencing. We have targeted training for EMIS this summer institute, this summer program, but due to Beryl, we have pushed it to September. But definitely, we need to do the pilot, learn from the pilot. We have learned a lot of insights from the study tools that we have been to. Governance, as emphasized before, policy making. We are in the process of developing our policy, and that's one of the shortcomings we had initially. We didn't have a set policy to roll out EMIS in the past, and that has contributed to some of the failures that we experienced. However, we are in the process of looking at Guyana's policy, looking at what Bahamas have, and we are developing that policy along with workflows and standard operating procedures, which is so important to developing such a system. When it comes to data integrity, another lesson that I personally learned is do not allow the schools to enter a student record. We can have so many variants in name sometimes. We can have duplicate. A school may do a transfer for themselves. Data may become corrupted. Data should be entered from the Ministry of Education and Central. Editing can be done at the school level, but let the ministry control the data entry for student or for staff, right? Workflows, making it as simple as possible. We have learned from the study tours, it's best. Do not make the system, do not make the workflow too cumbersome in the system, waiting on 10 persons to approve something or say a simple transfer per se, and that may take a long time. Make it as simple as possible for the teachers to use. A monitoring mechanism it's something that we have learned from the study tool that we never envisioned. Once monitors get done, it's a common saying we have in the Caribbean, but to drive usage, especially the attendance, somebody need to be monitoring the teachers. Hey, miss, you didn't put in attendance for yesterday. Sir, last week we're missing a whole week attendance. Somebody need to be monitoring those things. That's where human resource comes in. So we need that monitoring mechanism backed by human resource in it. Reporting and analysis, the data that comes up from the EMIS, we need to show value of EMIS, and that's where other personnel come in, planning comes in, statistics come in. What is the attendance rate? How can we use the data to push decision making for the minister, the vision of education, the ministry per se? All those things, thanks again to the study tool, we have included in our design and implementation for EMIS to show value in the implementation. Training, again, it's a whole ball game. Structuring the training, we have learned so much, and we are implementing some of the strategies that was used in the other countries when it comes to training. I know I do not have a lot of time, but this gives a basic idea of what we are doing here in Grenada, what we plan to do, and some of the lessons that we have learned from the study tool, so we do not make them in our implementation rolling out this academic year. So thank you, Ma.
Gracias, muchas gracias, Kate. Para poner un poco de contexto también al resto de los
To
participantes con
place a
los
little bit of context
países,
for the
con
rest
algunos
of the
países
countries
del Caribe Oriental,
in
desde
the
el KICS hemos estado
Eastern
facilitando
Caribbean countries, we have been
unas visitas de
facilitating from
aprendizaje
KIC
a
some
ciertos
different
países donde
trips to
precisamente
other
intercambian estas
countries
buenas
to be able to
prácticas
exchange these good
sobre la
practices
implementación de
regarding the
sus
implementation
sistemas de monitoreo de
of the
información, que
monitoring
precisamente
systems,
es de lo que
which
Kate nos está contando, de esos
precisely that is what
aprendizajes.
he is
También
telling us
para
of
aquellos que estén
regarding
interesados,
the
los ponemos a
learning, and we are
disposición de
also,
ustedes
if you are
muchas de estas
interested, we also make that
recomendaciones que
available
igual
for you, many of
Kate
the
ha mencionado.
recommendations that Kate
Antes
has
de
mentioned.
pasar a la
And
experiencia de
before
Honduras, me
we go
gustaría
to
tal
the
vez,
Honduras
Jermaine,
experience,
si
I would
tuviese
like for
algo, una
Jermaine, if
idea
he
que
has an
complementara de esa
idea that
experiencia,
he would like
Chanel
to
y Kate,
complement
totalmente bienvenido.
with Chanel and also Kate as well. You are very welcome to comment.
Jermaine.
Jermaine?
Oh, thank you, Ma. So I just want to say very quickly, I should have mentioned there's at least one of the OECS member state represented in here. That's with Shelley Galloway. Shelley, of course, would have accompanied, well, their contingents who joined us on the EMS tour in Guyana. Now, unfortunately, Antigua and Barbuda is not under the remit of SUMMA, but nonetheless, in the region, whenever we get these opportunities to work with development partners, in as much as they may not qualify for support or assistance, we always try to involve as many of the member states as possible, because of course we are culturally very much the same and our needs therefore are very much similar. So having said that, just to go back a bit to what Chanel would have presented and Cade, clearly there are two, I guess, different stages in their implementation in terms of EMIS. However, we see at different rounds the very same issues, the policy that it needs to be in place, the challenges of infrastructure, the capacity constraints on the human resources side. And I think at any stage, it always helps. And I saw that as well when Guyana participated in the knowledge exchange in the Bahamas, that at every stage in the deployment, you really need to see what is happening with other countries, other implementations, to get a sense as what is the better practice or good practices that need to be implemented. St. Lucia in its own right, and I myself I'm from St. Lucia. I used to be involved in the EMIS activity. Back when I was a teacher, I was one of those, the EMIS coordinator, as they used to call it. We have some experience with implementing EMIS, but of course, the solution itself was never very much appropriate to our context, nor did we have the support that we needed at the ministry level. So there were various reasons, as Chanel would have mentioned, for that not working as well. Grenada would have had an intervention with OpenEMS some years ago, but again, there were issues, teething issues. Which I think this time around, because they've had the benefit of the experience with Guyana and Bahamas, we can now take this on more holistically, more I think with more background knowledge as to what the requirements are. So to sum up, I think it's very important that we keep these engagements going. We keep, certainly within the OHS region, we keep exchanging ideas and experiences to see how we can solve these issues. So for us, we're thinking going forward, we're looking at a few things. We're looking at an EMIS solution that is at the very least as good as OpenEMIS. If there's a better one, we would like to know. But certainly, we also want to have a regionally based development team, because we understand that the engagement for EMIS with a developer is not a short-term thing. It's not 2 months, it's not 2 years. It goes on for longer. So it's very important for us to build that capacity within the region, because you will need people to help keep the lights on, to maintain, to do the troubleshooting, etc. And for me, they must come from the region as much as possible. And so building capacity in that way is going to make sure that we're addressing the sustainability issue. So on that note, I'll take it back to you, Ma, and thank you very much again. I cannot say thanks enough for your support. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Charmaine. Bueno,
Thank you
ahora
very much,
nos
Charmaine.
regresamos
And now we are going back geographically speaking to Central America, and we are going to hear the experience of the presentation
de una implementación que da
of the
mucho precisamente
implementation
a la temática que estamos hablando
that has a
sobre la
lot to do with what we
justicia
are
social.
talking about,
Tenemos con
social
nosotros a
justice.
Javier Donaire,
And
él
we
es el
have Javier
coordinador
Donaire,
general
he's
de la
the
Unidad del
general
Sistema
coordinator
Nacional de
of the
Información en
National
localidad de
Information
Honduras,
Systems and the
que nos contará
Education
sobre los
System in
desafíos
Honduras. And he's going to
que han
share with the
significado
challenges that
implementar
it has
el
meant to
registro
implement
único, el
the
registro de alumnos y el
unique
módulo SART
registry and the
precisamente
SAT
para poblaciones
model
vulnerables.
for
Javier,
vulnerable
por favor, bienvenido y
populations.
muchas gracias
Javier,
por aceptar esta
thank you
invitación.
for being here, and the floor is yours.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, and confirming that you can hear me
escucha?
okay.
Todavía
Yes,
falta
we
ver
can
el
hear
modo
you. We are
presentación.
still waiting to see in presentation mode.
Perfecto.
Buenos días, mi nombre es
Good
Javier
morning.
Donaire.
My name is Javier Donaire. I am in the Honduras Secretariat of Education, and we would like to talk regarding what we have called SASE, the administration system, and also the module of SART, which is the early warning system. So this is what we would like to talk about. So I'm going to start with a little bit of history. As I said, as it was mentioned before, this is not something that has to do with 1 or 2 days or just a few months. This is something that is longer than that. I apologize that maybe you don't see the numbers perfectly when it's in presentation mode, but in 2007, we had an audit of different posts and salaries where we had information regarding what was really happening in our country. We had certain numbers that we thought were the correct numbers, certain amounts of people, amounts of students, a certain amount of educational centers. And then after the audit, we realized it was the opposite. We did not have real numbers. So we would say we had around 35,000 teachers, and the reality was more around 50,000. We said that we had 13,000 educational systems, and we were more
Luego,
closer to
en ese
16,000.
entonces
And at
nació
that
el sistema de
time,
estadísticas
we
educativas,
had
donde
the
hacíamos boletas,
educational
pero
statistics
ya teníamos
systems
la concepción de
that
implementar un
was
sistema de
created,
gestión
but
educativa.
we are wanted
Para el
a
año
management system. So
2014
for
implementamos lo que es
2014,
el
we
SASE. En el
implemented
2013 se hicieron pruebas piloto,
CE,
pero el SASE nace a
but
partir
this
del
is born
2014.
or
¿Y
comes
qué es SASE?
in
Es el sistema de
2014. And
administración
what
de
is this?
centros
Is this is
educativos,
administration
donde está
system
todo
of
lo referente a las
educational
matrículas,
centers,
alumnos,
where it has to
docentes,
do with
plantel
the
educativo,
students.
centro
It has the
educativo,
different
se los muestro más adelante.
places. I'm
Luego,
going to show
para
you
el
more
año
information coming up.
2015 se
And then for
implementa el SERE, que era
2015, we
el
implement
sistema
SERE, which is the system
estadístico de
of
reinserción
statistics
escolar.
of
Ya teníamos
reinsertion
algunos
for
esfuerzos
students. We
y para
already
el
had some
2020
efforts. And for
lo
2020,
convertimos en lo que
we
hoy se
turned it
conoce
into
como el
what
SART,
we
el
know
sistema de alerta y
today as
respuesta temprana.
SART,
Y nuestros
a
siguientes
system
pasos
that has to
van
do with alerts and
encaminados a
early
agregar la P
warning.
de permanente.
And then
En eso estamos
we are
trabajando
wanting
y
to add a
actualmente
P
o
of
a
permanent,
nuestra
but
actualidad estamos pasando por
currently
procesos de
we
reingeniería de
are
todos
going
nuestros
through
sistemas educativos.
re-engineering of
Acá
all of our
nuestros sistemas de
systems with
gestión
all
en
of our
particular.
management systems in particular.
Hablando del SASE, ¿qué es el SASE? Pues
So
es
what is
la principal
SACE?
herramienta
This is the
tecnológica con
main
que cuenta
technological
actualmente la
tool
Secretaría de
that
Educación
the Secretariat
y
of
en esto se
Education has at
maneja
this time, and
lo
this
que
is
es
handled
todos los indicadores educativos del país.
with all of the
Algunos ejemplos
educational
puntuales,
indicators of the country. Some
indicadores de
examples can
cobertura,
be,
de
for example,
desempeño, de
coverage,
matrícula, de asistencia.
performance, those who are
¿Cómo
signed up,
se
attendance.
procesa SASE?
And how do
Pues
you
en realidad
process this? Well,
tiene
in
tanto datos
reality, it
cuantitativos
has
como cualitativos.
quantitative
Tenemos,
and
por ejemplo,
qualitative data. We have,
datos
for
puntuales de
example,
cada uno de los
data
estudiantes
regarding
del
each
sistema
one of the
educativo.
students in the
Nosotros
educational
manejamos lo que es el
system.
nivel
We
prebásico, el
have
básico
from
y
preschool,
educación media.
middle
En
school,
Honduras la educación
high school, and
básica
elementary
comprende
school.
los 9
And
grados
we
y
have
educación
9
media que son los
grades,
bachilleratos ciencias humanísticos y los
and
bachilleratos
we have
técnicos
the high
profesionales. Entonces,
school
tenemos
as
el
well. So
registro
we
de
have the
cada uno
two
de los
areas, and we
niños que
have
están
the
matriculados
record of each
en
of the
nuestro sistema
students who are
educativo.
signed up in our
El
educational
estamento legal
system.
nace en el
The
artículo
legal
32 de la Ley Fundamental de Educación
law says
y los datos
the
son
requires so,
generados
and the
por cada
data
uno de los centros
is
educativos.
generated from each one of the
Con
educational
cobertura a nivel
centers with
nacional,
coverage
tanto el sector
nationally,
gubernamental como
as
el
well
no
as
gubernamental.
the government and
Un
non-government
pequeño ejemplo de lo
institutions.
que recoge
And a little bit of an
SASE como
example
información,
of
lo
the
pueden ver acá.
information that
Hay
SASE
mucha
has.
más
You can see
información.
here, there's a lot more
Este es un
information.
dato
This is data
de un día específico. Nosotros
from a
recogemos la
specific
matrícula
date.
día a día.
We see
Nuestro sistema
who goes to
educativo
school
está abierto
daily,
los
and our
30,
system is
bueno,
open
está abierto todo el año.
all
En ese
year.
sentido, los niños
In
pueden ser
that sense,
matriculados en
children
cualquier
can be
momento del
signed
año.
up at any time
Y
during the year.
esto, como ustedes
And
verán, pues
as you can
hay un
see,
asterisco ahí porque eso
there is an
indicaba en ese
asterisk there
momento
because that
que aún
mentioned
la
that
matrícula estaba
to
abierta, que
show
no era la
that
matrícula
the
total. Pero
signups were
a ese
still
momento
open and it was
de
not the
la
total
gráfica que están
number.
viendo,
And there
teníamos
at the moment of
matriculados
the graph or the image you see on the screen, we had
1.864.000. ¿Qué nos daba esto?
1,864,000
Pues
students.
uno de los
So
grandes
what
problemas
did
que en
this
el
mean? One
país
of the main
tenemos es
issues that
que
we have in the
nos indica
country
que para
is
ese
that
año
it
en
indicates
particular
that for that year in
teníamos
particular, we
807.301
had
alumnos que estaban fuera del sistema educativo.
7,000
Aquí
students
también hacer
approximately
una
that were
salvedad,
outside of the
dado que
educational system.
estos son los datos
So
oficiales
since
del
this
INE,
is
sin
the
embargo,
official data
no es
from
la
the
población
uh,
real, porque muchos de
but
ellos
this is not
han
the
migrado tanto a Estados
population because
Unidos,
many of them
España,
have
México,
migrated
otros
to
países.
Spain, Mexico, United States, other
Entonces, SASE
countries.
como tal se
So
encarga de
SASE
recoger todo lo que es el
takes
registro de
in all of the
estudiantes,
registry
promociones,
of students,
notas, matrículas, centros
scores,
educativos, las cargas de los docentes
centers,
versus los
school
alumnos.
centers, the
Podemos
how
saber,
many
por
students per
ejemplo,
teacher.
cuántos alumnos están
We
siendo
can know how many
atendidos
students
por un docente y qué
are
alumnos están
per
siendo
teacher
atendidos por
and
ese
what
docente, en qué
students
grado,
are
en qué horario,
being
en qué
under
jornada.
that
Todo
teacher
eso
and
lo
what is their
registra SASE.
schedule. All of those
Y
details are registered
especialmente
by
el que
SASE.
queremos conversar hoy es
And
el
we
módulo
also,
de
what we would
alerta y
like to
respuesta
talk about
temprana.
is the
¿Qué es el
early
SART? Es una
warning
estrategia de inclusión
system.
plena para la garantía
What
del
is this?
derecho
This
a la
is
educación
an
de pobladores,
inclusion
de niñas,
strategy to
niños, adolescentes
guarantee
y
all
jóvenes en riesgo de
children
abandono o abandono escolar, lo que nosotros hemos catalogado como
what we have
vulnerabilidades.
catalyzed as
Se
vulnerable
procesa
children.
en los 18
They
departamentos del
process the
país, o
different
mejor dicho, el área de influencia
departments of the country.
del
The
SART,
area of
tanto
influence
del
of
SASE como el SART, es en los 18
SART
departamentos del país,
is
en
the
los de
different 18 departments of the country. country,
298 municipios,
298
perdón, 298
municipalities.
municipios en todos los distritos
We have them in
educativos
all of
y
the
en todos
different
los centros
educational
educativos
districts
del
and in
país.
all of the educational centers of the
¿Qué
country.
es
So what is our objective? As I was saying, is to guarantee the right of education to children, young people, and young people who are identified in risk of being abandoned, school dropout or school, and we want them to be able to have an educational response that is inclusive, quick, permanent, and timely. And on our side, we are interoperability with the data of the registry of the country. So we obtain the information from there. However, we have a population that we are reaching out to that are not registered, and it is a very small number, but it is populations mostly from other countries or who are in transit. For this kind of population, what we do is we have a differentiation, a different mechanism, so they can be registered with a foreign passport or a temporary ID number, or with some kind of document that they make have. So we sign these children up and with this kind of document. But those who are signed up in the country as residents from Honduras, their information is interconnected with the National Registry of People through the interoperability that we have. Now, for April 15 of 2024, we started the first few days of April to sign students up, and due to the delay of some changes in the curriculum that was being carried out in the centers, but by then we had the registry with the following conditions. For example, children with disabilities who were being who there can be any kind of disability. It can be cognitive, visual, learning issues, other kind of disability, safety. Also, when we're talking about violence in the country or a movement due to social conditions in the different educational centers where families have to migrate from one community to another. So we follow up on these children, or maybe for financial issues, or there's child labor. We have these registries, and we also have registry of children who are on migration, those who are um, on route to other countries, for example, in Guatemala, who are in Mexico, who were even on the border, and we continue taking care of them, and other mechanisms that were not in person. So there is a small example of what was being registered. The SART, what does it do? It has the students that are signed up, and they identify if they have any vulnerability condition. For example, if the teacher notices that a child is missing classes a lot, there is an alert that is, and so that this alert helps the teacher know what tools to work. The information systems or management are not only data, they also have to be strategies for those who educate. For example, everything that has to do with the school food is through the SASE, and you have the different bonuses or different finances. It is through this as well. So for example, if a child receives a transfer, the child has to, and the family has to guarantee that that child goes to their educational system on a regular basis. Conditions are, for example, if a child misses, then they lose their bonus, they lose their finances. If a child is not regularly going to school, they review and they can take away certain benefits. I clarify these transfers are not ours. It is not the educational system. It is another part of the government that carries that out, and this is through interoperability of the different organizations. We do so. For example, school food. We have some problems feeding because we have the school system open for sign up all year. So calculation for each one of the children, many times we do have issues due to this.
Pero si lo viéramos así, y como lo decíamos,
However, if we take a look at this with an EMIS of a high impact and how we saw it at the very beginning with this educational management, and that will generate strategic information for the decision-making process. That should be a system, and that should be within a technological infrastructure. And I would like to tell you, Larry, on why we've got this appendix. It should be accepted by all the communities, educational communities in the country. They should have all the systems. So here we can talk about the international cooperation, the foundations, the different organizations, and the teachers themselves. What are the challenges that we have found? And maybe one of the most important things has to do with the sustainability and the financing. Both SASE and SAS is a system that were born without an initial investment. So those are areas that what have we done? We just want to understand what were or gaps in terms of the budgets, and we will always have some problems with the reluctancy to the change. So that's why we need to see what is the organizational culture and to design a specific process for our final users. And one thing that is very important, this is a flexible process of education, and today we need to have a legal framework that would allow us to have the centers open all year round, and we can have an enrollment at any point of the year, a child that is in transit or it is a migrant. So this is very important. We already have the data of the national data of that person so that we will know the data of registry of that child, but we interact with other institutions so we can do the calculation of the bonuses and so on. And with a digital gap, we've got certain problems in the country because not all the country has access to the internet, but we have seen that all teachers in the country can have access to SASE and SAC by means of implementations that can be light and they can run at any point in the country. And something that is very important, and I just want to mention this, it has to do with the security of the information. Not every each pieces of information are public. So if they want to know how many child are pregnant at a specific institution of education and who they are. I mean, we've got the statistic, but we don't have the identification of each one of them because of the security issue. And I think that this is something that we need to work strongly just to know which sort of information is public and which one is not. I just want to tell you that this is a diagram that we proposed back in the year 2019 to integrate all of our systems in only one interface. We also know that not everything should be in one system. We've got a system for planning, for educational systems, and also not everything should be one, but they need to interoperate. So as our system interact with other institutions. So as I said, given the time, what has been our argument by knowing that the sustainability is an important area, and we've got some tools of open source and they're going to be broadly used, and to not include some additional aspect. Both systems that are here today are done with a safe open source with a huge scale. And they also have a great acceptance at a national level. And those are one of the most powerful tools that we may have around the world. So where are we with the process of reengineering? Is that this is our new version of SASE in what we have been working on. This is what we started to develop in 2009, which was implemented in 2013 and started to work in 2014. So today we've got the second stage to this SASE version and to our system of information. This is everything with my presentation, and I really hope
gracias,
that
Javier,
I was within time.
por
So,
esta pincelada, porque
Javier,
entendemos la
thank you very
magnitud
much for this
de la
because we
responsabilidad que
understand
ustedes tienen.
how
Nuevamente,
important it is
queremos invitar
and
a todos los que están
what
aquí
you've got.
presentes, en
And
el
I just
caso que
want to
ustedes quieran
invite
ahondar más sobre
everybody.
esta temática,
And
solo que
if you
en el chat
want
o
to
en un
get
correo
deeper
nos
into
hagan llegar
this in
su
a
interés, y
chat
nosotros
or
estamos
in
aquí
an
precisamente para
email,
atender
maybe you could
y
tell us
fortalecer esos
because we're
lazos de
here
intercambio
to
y de
reinforce these
aprendizaje
areas of
con este
exchange
ministerio, con el
and
Ministerio
learning
de Santa
experiences
Lucía,
with the
de,
St.
de, de
Lucia,
Granada,
with
con los
Granada,
expertos que
with
también
the
estuvieron en el primer
experts
bloque.
that were
Ahora, para
in the first
finalizar esa
block.
ronda de experiencias,
And
nos
just to
gustaría
finish with
pasar
this round of
nuevamente,
experiences,
invitar
we would
a
like
Canut
to
Esteban a compartir
invite
su
Canute
presentación
Stevens to
para el
share
que,
his
aparte
presentation
de tener
for
estas
this
experiencias
kicks.
sectoriales en
And
Colombia, nos
besides having
interesa
this, we
visibilizar
also want
esa
to
articulación entre
see
investigación y
that
política.
articulation between
Canut hoy nos va a
investigation
estar
and policy. So
comentando y nos va a
Canute,
estar contando
you're going to
algunas
comment and you're
reflexiones
going to tell
precisamente
us some
sobre eso.
comments
Canut es Project
about
Manager
that.
para
So Canute is
DHIS2
project
en el
manager for the
HISP
H in
Center de
the
la Universidad de
HHP at
Oslo.
the
Ha
center
trabajado en
of
sistemas de
Oslo
información y
University. He
gestión
has
desde la
been
creación de
working
la
in the system of
plataforma
information
DHIS2,
with
que nos va a contar un
the
poco más sobre eso en
DHUS2.
2004,
So
y ha
that
tenido
will
una
depend.
amplia
And
experiencia
he has
trabajando en
had a
organizaciones como el
broad
Banco de la
experience
Organización Mundial de la Salud en
working
Ginebra.
with the
Canut
WHO
también
in
tiene
Geneva.
unos
So
doctorados en
Kenneth
Sistema de
also has a
Información y
postgraduate in
Economía.
the system
Siendo
of
así, Canut,
information and economy. So
bienvenida, te
with that,
agradecemos
Kenneth, please,
nuevamente que
we
estés
would
con
like to
nosotros.
welcome and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Mar, and thank you to Raul for inviting me, and also for all the previous presenters, because I've learned a lot today. It's been very, very helpful and very interesting. So I hope I can add a little bit of additional perspectives. So my presentation I've named I've called community-driven innovation. So as a university, we do research, but the kind of research we do is action research. So it's not just sitting in an office or a lab, but actually going out and trying to implement systems and learn from that. And with a very, very strong emphasis on producing solutions and working with organizations, primarily governments, to find setups that are sustainable beyond, the initial project that has a short period often. So I work at the University of Oslo, as was said. We have something called the HISP Center, HISP. And I'll go a little bit into that. And I want to talk about the work that we've been doing for a very long time in the health sector, which we are now applying the learnings from in the education sector. So in health, we're actually working in a lot of countries globally, quite a few in Latin America, but even more in Asia and Africa, as you can see in this map a little bit. We work with both aggregate data and individual level data. And I think that has also come through in today's presentations, how important it is to kind of preserve both perspectives going forward. So I wanted to mention, because we have representatives and very excellent presentations from the Caribbean today, that just 6 months ago, basically, we initiated a collaboration with the regional health authorities in the Caribbean. Again, of course, on the health side, not on education, but on disease surveillance. So just thought that might be interesting for you to know. So we're working in a lot of countries, and we think that there's a lot of similarities, and of course also quite a few differences between health and education, but we also think there are a lot of synergies possibly and potentially, and our research is partly aimed at identifying and helping countries benefit from any synergies that we find. So focusing more on education, what is maybe not as much available in education as in health is what the GPE in a report from, 6 years ago called sort of EMIS in a box. There are some very good solutions out there, but I think we also seen that countries develop their own solutions, which is excellent because then they build the local capacity. But I also think we also think that there is a lot of scope for collaboration. And I think, again, that the presentations we've heard today about field visits to Guyana and multiple countries visiting each other, etc., is hugely beneficial and really the right way to go for sustainability. And we're doing similar things. So we work in Africa. We've been working with the African Union, IPED. They monitor indicators across the whole continent of Africa. So that's more than 50 countries, 55, I think. So they have, just like the SDGs, they have some additional indicators that they monitor at a continental scale. So I wanted to include this because I think there's still a lot of potential for really exploiting what we refer to as the aggregate data, the data about schools and about numbers of students, which of course ideally would be generated from a system that manages individual students at each and every school and teachers. But often this data we feel like even the aggregate data is not exploited to the extent that it could be exploited. It's often not shared on a timely basis. It's often not great quality, and it's often concentrated at the ministry level and not really used by subnational levels or down to the school level where most of the benefit could actually be accrued if people had access and capacity. So there are, of course, a lot of data that currently reside in printed statistical yearbooks that are often very late and not up to date. So same point, but just making things really available, making it easy for people to zoom in and find the data that they're really interested in and tailor the outputs, such as a dashboard like this, to their particular needs, and maybe as a community. So interacting with other people in various departments in the ministry, but obviously also at the provincial and district level and at the school level. We think that this is key to really getting quality data, is that people start using the data, looking at the data and discussing the data. So that's a very strong emphasis that we've had in health, and which we're trying to bring into education as well. So EMIS is getting more and more complicated in some ways, but because it's possible to collect all kinds of data down to what each student is doing in each lesson. Of course, we don't need all that data at every level, and it needs to be. We really need, as a community, is our feeling. We need to learn what is actually useful to collect. And I think the last presenter was making a very good point that you sit at the ministry level, you don't need to know, and you shouldn't know every detail about each individual students, but there are certain things that you could really benefit from, and we all as a community need to find out what is feasible without overburdening both the students, but certainly the teachers, and also can be made available at scale and sustained and really be worked into the work processes, both administratively and pedagogically. So the initial presentation today about the two pillars and how they are both super important and need to interact more than they currently do. This is, to me, what is exciting about the new approaches to EMIS, because the classical one where you do an annual school census, I think we're all well beyond that. But that doesn't mean that we know exactly where the sweet spot is. And it, of course, it may differ quite a bit between types of schools and also between countries. But I think there's a lot to learn from each other. So we think that integration of data is one area that is still underdeveloped in most countries. I think we heard some nice examples today where that integration is happening. We think there's still a lot of integration that needs to be done. And the nice thing about integration is that it doesn't put all your eggs in one basket, but it does require very strong central resources. You really need to have a good grip on what your schools are, where they are, what services they offer, who are the students and staff in each school, and qualifications, what are their the trajectories, the educational trajectories they're following. So we think there's a lot more work to be done here in terms of integration. Some countries we've heard actually is already managing this. Fundamentally, it is part of e-government. And that's also what leads to my next slide, actually, after this one. But I mean, use of data at the local level is crucial, but then also use is heavily involved with schools. Obviously, poor health or health-related issues is a big reason that students are dropping out. And we know that there's a lot of health-related activities that are happening with the school as a focus. One thing is, for example, school feeding and nutrition, water and sanitation, vaccination, etc. And we think, again, that there's so much scope there for collaboration, and also logistically, because, as we said, the health sector in general is often more advanced in terms of using technology. So they know a bit more about handling data, but they don't have that comprehensive overview that the education sector has. So there's a lot of synergy that could well be developed, and we were exploring that in several countries that we work in. So I really liked the presentation from Grenada, talking about, and also the St. Lucia, I think we're talking about, it's not just the technology. It's really not just about the technology. We think about it as three pillars, where community may be the most important, in fact. That's why we have it at the top of this slide. And also the capacity building is, of course, a key part of our mission as a university. But then this does, in all cases, relate to some kind of technical solution. And to us, it's very important that countries think through their digital architecture for education, and also for e-government more generally, but certainly in terms of having something that is flexible, future-proof, that can be changed when the requirements and the needs and the situation changes. Obviously, something like COVID hits or a hurricane hits or something terrible like that, but also nice opportunities. The technology, new possibilities. Then you need to have a flexible architecture that can underpin innovation. And when I say innovation, I mean both local and global innovation, sharing innovations between countries, both organizational approaches, but certainly also technological approaches. And that's why we really think that the Apple and Google, in terms of their iPhones and Android operating system, really sort of exemplify a nice way of thinking about you have a core, you have a device. And nowadays, most teachers would have a device. So they basically have a powerful computer in their hands, and that can form the platform. And similarly, in terms of the software, you have a strong platform core, and then you can build modules on it. And the modules can be built locally, and whereas the platform core will steadily improve in new iterations by having getting the feedback from users in different fields and different roles in different organizations. So this is our overall digital platform ecosystem analysis, and we're doing research related to that. So some examples of local innovations. Very excited to see innovations now. Again, on Android, we see as kind of the it's kind of the cheapest and that's and most available platform. So we've done a lot of work on that. But even simple technology such as SMS that's been around for ages still can be very useful in certain circumstances, especially if internet is not very stable. So these are just examples of innovation that we've seen in some of the countries we work with. I should mention that we work in about 10 countries now, in Sri Lanka, in West Africa, in East Africa. So here is an example, just again from platform, sorry, where we have what we call the App Hub, where different organizations that develop extensions and modules, or apps as we call them, can share those and also have other people contribute to the further development of the output modules mainly. So we do that through a very iterative process. Action research is by definition iterative. You go out, you try something, you come back, and you improve, and you evaluate, and you go out again and continue to improve and share in a network. So strong emphasis then on capacity building, and we would really recommend this both within a country as much as possible down to the local level, but also within a region and of course globally. We think there is so much that can be shared and so much we can learn from each other. So we'd formalize this in terms of masters and PhD students, but a lot of it is also done through more shorter courses and training and making material available online as well. And we work closely with something called the Digital Public Goods Alliance in order to share all the software, but also the other resources around it, training materials and best practices. So here's an example of some conferences and academies that are being introduced, organized regionally. We think it is really important to have this exchange, and we try to formalize it, but of course we also really try to encourage webinars and online communities where people can just ask questions, technical questions, or more like, has someone tried to focus on out of school students? Do you have some suggestions, or integration with civil registration to capture out of school students, for example, or integration with the health sector, with social protection, etc., as Raul mentioned in his introduction. We are also just trying to develop what we call a Pan-African EMIS Master's Program. Again, all the material that is developed will be shared openly. We work directly with the University of the Gambia in West Africa on this, but also with the African Union. And finally, I wanted to mention that thinking in terms of having a platform and thinking in terms of having a core means that you can also try to integrate beyond just the very obvious education field. And we're seeing, of course, unfortunately, the effects of climate change affecting all sectors and the economy. And we are then therefore actually working, we have a big project on climate and health. And we work with the Norwegian Meteorological Institute, but also similar institutes in other countries to see, what can we do in terms of predicting events and projections going forward, which of course go both for sort of immediate disaster planning, but on the other hand, very much more long term. Where should you actually construct your new schools? Where is it? Where do the risks come the most? And we try to consolidate all of this through what we call the EMIS Learning Lab and an EMIS Innovation Network. And we hope to be able to collaborate with many of you on this. Thank you very much. Over.
Muchas gracias, Canut. Súper complementario todos estos
Thank you
inputs que
very
nos
much. This
planteas.
very
En términos
interesting.
generales, quisiéramos
In
hacer
general
una
terms, we would
ronda
like
rápida y
to
corta
carry out a quick round
con las experiencias y nos
with the
gustaría hacerle una
experiences,
pregunta
and
a
we would like
ustedes.
to ask
Considerando
you
los
a
desafíos de
question to
complejidad,
all of
de
you.
financiamiento, todo lo
Considering
que nos
the
han
financing,
mencionado y la historia
all
de
the
cada
different
iniciativa,
issues you have in the story of
em,
each initiative,
¿cómo están abordando la
how are
sustentabilidad
you
desde
dealing with
sus propias
sustainability
experiencias
from
y
your
qué
own
rol juega la
experience, and what
voluntad
role
política
is political
y el
will
establecimiento de políticas
and the
educativas específicas
establishment
para los CIGED y
of
para los
policies
datos?
for CHED and for data, for EMIS and data?
No sé si tal vez
I don't
Chanel,
know
do
if
you want
maybe Chanel.
to give some ideas about it? Or Kate y Javier también. Y Canut, por supuesto.
Sí, mire, con el tema de la sostenibilidad, yo
Having
creo
to
que
do
cuando
with
uno hace este
sustainability, I
tipo de
think that when
esfuerzos,
you carry out
lo
this kind of
primero que se debe
effort, the
plantear es la
first thing that you
sostenibilidad.
should talk
Y la
about is
sostenibilidad
sustainability,
pasa
and
por muchos
sustainability
factores.
goes through many
Primero hay un
factors.
tema de sostenibilidad
First,
económica.
there is
En ese
economic
sentido, ¿qué nos
sustainability,
funciona a nosotros?
and what works
Usar
for us in that
herramientas de
sense,
código abierto
to
que
use
fueran
open
fuertes,
code,
funcionales y que
open
tengan gran
source
impacto a nivel
tools
mundial.
that have impact
Eso por temas
worldwide.
presupuestarios, lo
And due
complejo que
to
es la
budgets, how
administración
complex
en los
administration
gobiernos,
is in the
nos daba la
governments,
facilidad
it gives us the
de poder
facility
sostener
to
nuestros
be able
sistemas
to
a
sustain our
largo tiempo
systems
sin
long
mayores
term
inversiones.
without
Hay
higher
unos estudios de la
investment.
UNESCO
There are
donde
some studies from the
enfáticamente
UNESCO where
recomiendan
they
no hacer uso
recommend
de
to
software de
not
compra.
use
El proyecto BID
purchased
2, por ejemplo,
software.
como proyecto open
One
source,
of the project
estrategias
that has to do with strategy,
como ODK también son estrategias tipo open source para garantizar justo eso,
open
la
source, to be
sostenibilidad.
able to guarantee
Por otro lado,
sustainability. On the
¿qué
other
garantiza
hand,
que los sistemas
what
funcionen?
guarantees that the
Les
systems
cuento
will work?
puntualmente la experiencia nuestra.
And our
Hoy por hoy,
experience,
nuestros docentes, el 100% de
the
nuestros
teachers,
docentes
100% of
toman
our
como
teachers
propio SASE y dicen es
take
nuestro
SAS as
sistema.
their own, and that
¿Qué
is
hizo
our
SASE
system.
para ellos?
So what
Antes
did
de la
SASE do
implementación
for
de
them?
SASE,
Before the
todo era papel.
implementation of SASE,
Las
everything was
boletas
done
de
by paper.
calificaciones, los
You have the
certificados
different
de los
grades, the
estudiantes,
certificates for the
constancias, etcétera,
students,
etcétera, cuadros
all the
finales.
different
La
things
documentación en general
having to do with
se hacía a
documentation in
mano.
general was carried out
Hoy
by hand.
se hace de manera digital.
Today,
O sea,
we can
con
do
un
it
clic,
digitally. With
el
one
docente
click,
puede
the
imprimir
teacher can
calificaciones,
print
boletas,
grades,
constancias, certificados de cada,
different
de cada uno de
certificates,
sus
any other
resultados.
thing that they
Entonces,
might need.
¿cómo garantizamos la
So how do we
sostenibilidad?
guarantee
Mediante el
sustainability?
empoderamiento de
Through
nuestros
the
usuarios finales
empowerment
en sus
of our
propios
final
sistemas de gestión.
users in their own
Eso a su
management
vez
systems.
nos
At the same
retroalimenta de
time,
datos
this
que son
gives us
de suma
feedback with
importancia para
data
la toma de
that is
decisiones. Entonces,
incredibly
nosotros
important
tenemos
for
datos
decision
de
making.
poblaciones,
So we have
de pueblos
data
A y
having to do with
B,
population. We have the different
vulnerabilidad,
villages. We have
infinidad de datos
vulnerability.
por
We
cada
have an
una de las regiones
infinite amount
y
of
podemos saber
data,
cómo están segmentados
and we can see
nuestros educandos en cada uno de los departamentos, en cada uno de
how
los
the
municipios,
departments are
la
segmented, how the
relación de
municipalities, the
docente-alumno, dónde
relationship
necesitamos más docentes, dónde
between
hay
teachers and
mayor
students,
población de
where we need
docentes,
more teachers, where
etcétera,
we have
etcétera.
more
Entonces,
teachers,
insisto, el
etc. I
empoderamiento de los
insist the
usuarios finales
empowerment
es
of the final
indispensable
users
y
is
lo otro es garantizar
indispensable. And the other thing is
que
to
no dependamos
guarantee
tanto del recurso financiero para poder sostener
that we
estas
don't depend so
iniciativas que
much
se
on
hacen.
finances to
Esa podría ser una
sustain this.
de mis
That could be one of my comments. Thank you very much, Canut. Maybe you also have something regarding sustainability of your own projects and also the role of the political will in the representation of the same.
Yes, thank you. Certainly, I think maybe to start with the political will, I think sometimes this regional or even global perspective is very powerful because even ministers can feel sort of peer pressure in the sense that or certainly, I mean, not just ministers, but officials in charge of planning and EMIS. When we've had gatherings of people, that's why gatherings, in-person gatherings, are still crucial, not just on the internet, but people meet each other and they say, oh, you know, in my neighboring country, they've actually achieved all this, and people come back home and feel like, we should be able to do the same. How come we don't have the system? And so that's again why I really love the Guyana example. I very much agree with what was said about trying not to. I think it's very important to have relatively simple solutions that are not very costly. I fully agree on the open source. I think that's also very, very important because just managing licenses is also logistically, it's a nightmare. And of course, it's very costly. And I also think that having people locally involved where they see that their data is there, they know that they need to, you know, they have that button, they can print, they want the data, then they really care about the quality of the data. If it's all about reporting to someone that you have no idea who is, just someone has forced me to do this, then you know, maybe I will copy the data from last time or something. But now I need the data to be good because I'm using the data and I'm using with my peers. And if my peers see that you know, I'm not doing my job, then that reflects very badly on me. So I think getting that ownership is really good, and it's so nice to hear that that's been achieved. I think that use of data locally is really crucial, and basically, maybe to begin with, keep the system simple so people actually understand it. They can actually use it. They can make sure that the data that is there is good quality instead of trying to cram everything, because it's very tempting once, especially if you are, you know, high level, you think that, oh, it's electronic, there's no limit. Like in paper, okay, there's a limit, but in electronic systems, there's no limit to how much data you can potentially collect, but someone has to collect it. Someone has to do the work. That is a big burden if that's not relevant for them. So something that is relevant locally and not too complicated, I think is crucial to get things started. And then, of course, you can build on that. And you can say, okay, now people know the system. Now they can handle a bit more. They can build on more, but take it a little bit step by step is my recommendation. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Canut. No sé si Kate o Chanel tienen alguna
Thank you. I don't know
idea
if
para
Kate or
sumar a
Chanel
esta
have any idea
conversación
that they
sobre
would
el
like to add to
realismo
this
político y la
conversation regarding the
sostenibilidad. Si no,
political
podemos
will
pasar
and
ya al
sustainability.
cierre de
If
este
not, we
espacio.
can start closing this space. Kate, go ahead.
Yes, I think for sustainability, open source code is the way to go, right? So we minimize costs on a yearly basis. Political will, I believe that providing useful data to those above can maximize or push them to fund more in the EMIS. Yeah. And we need to promote a culture of using technology to reduce workload at the end user point of view. So instead of the end users seeing it as a burden to use, show them the usefulness of it and minimize the workload or the processes that is being used at the end user level. That's my contribution.
Muchas gracias, Kate. Chanel?
Yes, thanks again. St. Lucia's example has truly shone light on how we get in our policy environments where it should be, and appreciating that, the best practices that already exist allow us to even, expedite that particular aspect. But very importantly, we need to create that strong policy environment to define the relationships, the quality relationships that we are looking for among our various stakeholders and colleagues across all levels, ground, districts, and central level, to ensure that we are able to have that committed approach towards a sustainable EMIS, and that we have bought into it, would truly appreciate and certainly work to institutionalize it on a day-to-day basis. And that is where eventually, with that kind of learning that happens, then we can truly look forward to that transformation of education in St. Lucia and across the region, the Caribbean region, the world globally.
Muchas gracias, Chanel.
Thank you very
Bueno,
much, Chanel.
gracias a todos los ponentes.
Thank
Ha
you
sido
all.
realmente
It
bien
has been
estimulante esta
very
conversación. También en
stimulating
el
to
chat ha
have this
estado
conversation, and
muchas
also the
personas,
chat. We have
ministerios,
seen a lot of
sindicatos
people
docentes,
different
poniendo sus
participating. We have
perspectivas y
people from
también algunas
ministries, we have teachers, we have
reflexiones
others,
generales, preguntas que
reflections and different
esperamos, como
questions
les
and points of
decimos,
view.
esta
And
es
we hope
una pincelada
this is
general a
just
estas experiencias tan
a quick
significativas que luego en
view
otros espacios esperamos
that we hope in
poder
other
ver
spaces
más
we
a
can
fondo.
see,
Para cerrar, queremos
look
invitar
at
a
all
Joy
of this much deeper.
Dafungo. Ella es
We would like
oficial
to
del
say Joy
programa
Dafungo to be able
Para
to
Cuenta
close.
con
She
más de
is
10 años de
in the
experiencia
KICS program. She
trabajando
has
en
been with
diversas
more than 10 years
iniciativas
with
en
experience in
educación
different
y educación
initiatives in
infantil específicamente,
education
y en sectores de desarrollo e
and
investigación.
in
Actualmente
research
brinda
and
liderazgo técnico
development.
a varios
She
proyectos
has
de
been a
KICS
technical
en el
leader of
este,
different
oeste
projects
y
in
sur de
KICS in the
África.
east,
Así
west,
que,
and south of
Joy,
Africa.
muchísimas
So
gracias por
Joy,
traernos
thank you
también
very
esa
much for
perspectiva
bringing us this
de un
perspective
continente hermano que
of
con
a
certeza
brother or sister
tiene
continent
desafíos
that
muy similares a
definitely
los que
has
otra parte del mundo
challenges
también
that are very
está
similar to the ones that
enfrentando.
we are dealing with on our part of the world.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, Mar. I'll be very brief. I see we've run out of time, but I just want to start by congratulating SUMMA, OECS, and the KICS LAC Hub for putting together this very informative webinar. I've enjoyed listening. And of course, coming from Africa, I do identify with a lot of issues and challenges and opportunities that have been shared today. And of course, to all the panelists for sharing the experiences and lessons on EMIS. I think today we've just seen the wholesomeness of EMIS to address many gaps in the education sector. And I just wanted to reiterate that, of course, this is very important work, but it's at the heart of what we do at KICS. Of course, we are proud to be associated with SUMMA and OECS. However, we also separately continue supporting countries to use the evidence that is emerging to strengthen data systems and data use. And this is one of those opportunities. I think I had quite a couple of takeaways from the session, but I would like to be as brief as possible. Just a couple of, I think 5 that I wanted to highlight. I had, of course, the importance of integrating the different areas to assure monitoring of quality indicators, even as we look at strengthening the infrastructure of EMIS. So some of the lessons we are seeing, of course, why we need to align these indicators, the quality indicators, with international standard definitions of indicators, and also why we need to understand the importance of monitoring the indicators so that we know where we are, so that we track our progress, and so that we can also reflect on this progress and know how to fill the gaps. I also had the importance of technology. Of course, EMIS in itself is technology to an extent in terms of infrastructure, but also why we need to embrace it, why we need to embrace technology within the classroom, and also the use of technology, not just in the classroom, but also in the processes and providing digital information that we need to continuously update. Recognizing that, of course, we are not starting from scratch. I think we had lots of progress in today's meeting webinar. We also had lots of challenges. And so what is important is to continue forward and to commit to keeping our systems agile and responsive to the evolving education landscape. The importance of institutionalization, this came up quite a couple of times. So institutionalizing these processes in national education budgets, I think this is very important. This is a challenge, particularly on our continent. And as you know, data units, we realize that they are severely underfunded. Lack of qualified or sufficient staff to analyze data, to use the software or equipment, to buy the equipment. So these are some of the issues that need to be addressed, we need to confront and see how to deal with. And then lastly, also acknowledging and being kind to ourselves, acknowledging that transformation is complex and non-linear. I think we had this with one of the presenters. And so we should expect setbacks, of course. However, we need to look at some of these setbacks as learning, more learning. Maybe sometimes it's more learning than successes, but it's still progress. And there will be challenges. However, I think what is important is to stay committed. And so ensuring that, of course, whatever we are doing, the innovations we are funding, whatever we are supporting is context sensitive, problem focused rather than solution attached, and allowing for adaptable and effective strategies. So as a parting shot, I just wanted to say what we all know in alignment with today's webinar, EMIS for Social Justice. Just reminding ourselves of SDG 4, that equity is at the heart of SDG 4. And we see that governments have committed to providing inclusive and equitable quality education at all levels. And this affirms that all people, irrespective of sex, age, race, ethnicity, and persons with disabilities, migrants, indigenous people, children and youth, especially those in vulnerable situations, should have access to lifelong learning opportunities. And this is why we're having this conversation. How do we strengthen our EMIS systems so that they can meet learning needs of all students? And also underlining the need for particular attention and targeted strategies for vulnerable groups to fulfill this commitment. So I'll stop there, but thank you so much, Mar, for chairing the session, and for everyone for sharing their experiences and lessons. And thank you and goodbye.
Muchas gracias, Joy. Perfecto.
Thank you very much. These ideas that you mentioned to us are perfect, and the invitations that you leave for us as well. We would like to thank everybody who is present today. We would like to invite you to follow us on our social media. We are also going to send you through the chat different links so you can give us some feedback and continue in contact so that we can have your contact information so we can make sure you can receive important information regarding all these issues. So we would like to thank the BID and the OECS and the Ministry of Education of Santa Lucia, Granada, Honduras, the University of Oslo, and obviously the International Center and SUMMA and the Alliance for Education, and for everybody who made this space available. Thank you very much, all of you, and we will see you in a different occasion.